Chapter 380. Suddenly, Chiruefeng's cell phone rang. Chiruefeng glanced at the message, and his expression changed slightly, revealing a look of surprise. "Everyone, quiet down. I have good news for you." Everyone quieted down. Just now, the teacher sent a message. According to the monitoring of the school's garrison, there is a fluctuation in the psionic power crack of another special treasure land. It is expected to open in 1 to 2 weeks, Chiruefeng said with a smile. This is the second special treasure land activity this school year. I hope everyone will participate enthusiastically. Really? Everyone showed a look of joy. Special treasure lands were large fragments peeled off from the spirit realm. They could be regarded as independent spaces, which generally followed the rules of the spirit realm. However, because they were separated from the spirit realm, there would be no main mission in the special treasure land. In other words, everyone who entered the special treasure land could exit the space at any time, regardless of whether they were in a combat state or not. This was equivalent to completing the main mission in the spirit realm and obtaining free exploration time. Moreover, there were generally some special psionic treasures in the space of the treasure land. Unlike in the spirit realm, these psionic treasures were yours once they were plucked and could be taken out of the space of the treasure land. The low risk and high return made the exploration of the treasure land more popular than the exploration of the spirit realm. What's more, killing monsters in the treasure land could also increase one's combat experience. If there was a flaw, it would be the inability to uncover side missions. But for many people, this flaw could be ignored. Li Cheng suddenly asked, "Then, which treasure land has a fluctuation in the space of the treasure land?" "The Dead Soul Lake." In a flash of light, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi returned to the guild restaurant. It was dinner time, and some single awakened ones of the super gods were eating in the guild restaurant. The sudden appearance of Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi immediately became the focus of everyone's attention in the restaurant. Fortunately, the effect of the space-time dislocation was not serious. If the two of them returned and landed on someone's soup bowl, it would be awkward. "Miss? And Xiao Bai. Oh, you're back from the spirit realm." Old Monster slurped a bowl of soup and said with a smile. Li Shi was a little shy. Bai Xiaowen waved to the people in the restaurant. "Good evening, everyone. Can I have some fast food? I've been starving for a few meals in the spirit realm." The auntie in charge of serving food in the restaurant took a few more glances at Bai Xiaowen's straight nose and dug in with her spoon. A full plate of meat was piled next to the white rice, trembling and looking very tempting. "Thank you. Give Shui another one." Bai Xiaowen revealed a handsome smile and swiped his membership card. The auntie nodded, and with a clang sound, the spoon was filled to the brim. She still recognized eldest Mississippi. The treatment in the guild dining hall was pretty good. These pieces of meat were all mutant beast meat and could be added to the enhanced recipe. Intermediate and advanced hunters may not care about the psionic particles in the enhanced diet, but the taste of mutant meat was a level higher than that of domesticated livestock. Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi carried their bowls and sat opposite Old Demon. "Uncle Old Demon. Eh? I remember that there was a non-mainstream person sitting next to you just now." Bai Xiaowen's insight and memory were very good. Although he was in full view of everyone just now, he had already automatically remembered the layout and seats in the restaurant as if he was filming it. Even if Bai Xiaowen was blindfolded and asked to say how many chairs and how many people there were in the restaurant, he could recall the scene after filming it. And the non-mainstream person just now seemed a little familiar. At least he had seen him once, but it might have been a little long ago. "What non-mainstream?" "That's Captain Blade." Old Demon said with a smile. "Oh, it's Captain Nyakong. Why did he leave so soon?" Bai Xiaowen glanced at the restaurant door, trying to find the back of Blade Nyakong. "Hey, he didn't want to see you face to face," Old Demon said. "Didn't you notice? Captain Blade has been avoiding you." "Why is he avoiding me?" Bai Xiaowen thought back to the past, and it seemed to be true. Blade Nyakong had been in the Super Gods headquarters building, and Bai Xiaowen often came, but the two had never seen each other or talked to each other except for the first time. Do you remember before the college entrance examination, the president asked Blade to tutor you? Old Demon reminded him. At that time, Captain Blade said that you had no chance of being the college entrance examination's top scorer. Bai Xiaowen laughed. Captain felt embarrassed to see you, so he has been avoiding you. Bai Xiaowen almost laughed like a pig. That's nothing, just because of that? Old Demon nodded. Just because of that? Well, now I know how chinibu this person is. Bai Xiaowen shrugged. Nia Kong's non-mainstream attire of thin metal spikes, ripped jeans, and earrings was very telling in itself. Old Demon laughed. What do you think? Don't you think Captain Blade is a little cute? Bai Xiaowen shuddered. He couldn't get any cuteness from it. Uncle Old Demon, I have something important to ask. Bai Xiaowen thought for a while, then put on a serious expression and asked a little seriously, in the past few days, has anyone come to the guild and talked about me? He was referring to the Boda Guild in Taiwan-based city. Yes, you're a busy person. The Old Demon obviously misunderstood and praised, let me count for you. Elder Zhang from the pharmacy has been asking when you're coming back. He said that he found a newspaper in Beijing and wants to do an exclusive interview with you. Your personal manager, Jing Jinyan, has also looked for you and said that she wants to organize a fan meeting. There's also... Well, to tell you the truth, the boss of the Giant God Medicine Hall, Fu Hong, has also asked people about you in a roundabout way. It seems that he wants to invite you to a meal. I'm so busy. Bai Xiaowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Old Demon didn't have enough. Also, 2 days ago, a female teacher from your school with the surname Yan asked when you would come back. She specifically left a message for you to go back to school as soon as you came back. I won't say much about the other small media's interview invitations. Anyway, you're really a busy person now. Uncle Old Demon, it's not strange that these people came to me. Bai Xiaowen asked another question. No one came to trouble me? Chapter 381. There was a look of relief on Li Shi's face. Bai Xiaowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He was a little surprised. When the Old Demon saw the strange expressions on their faces, he was shocked. You can't be serious, right? Would someone really find trouble with you, Xiao Bai? Bai Xiaowen smiled. No, maybe I'm too sensitive. Bai Xiaowen didn't want to talk about the Boda Guild and Zhao Zhixiong now. It wasn't that he didn't trust the old monster, but there was no need to let everyone in the guild know about this. Especially since this was the guild's restaurant. There were too many people. The old monster was deep in thought. He didn't ask much and just said, if there's anything, you must communicate with the guild in time. You haven't grown up yet. The guild is your backing. Bai Xiaowen nodded and thanked the old monster for his reminder. After the meal, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi, accompanied by the old monster, went to see the guild master, Li Beihai, to tell him some information about the Jiajing Plain. Li Beihai saw that the two of them had returned safely and had both risen to level 5. He was naturally very happy. However, when he heard the progress of the information given by Bai Xiaowen, he was shocked. In the short span of 10 days, you've managed to wipe out 3 of the most famous pirates in history? Yes, actually there were 4, but Su Hai's force can't be considered as eliminated by us, Bai Xiaowen said. Li Beihai shook his head. The old monster, who was recording the information at the side, sighed. You're simply the Terminators of the plane. You've only been here for 10 days and you've already caused such a big thing. If you were to stay in the Jiajing Plain for a month, I'm afraid that the unification of the plane would be brought forward. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, the unification of the Jiajing Plain will only count if the Japanese, Tartars, and Nuzanran are all destroyed. It doesn't only include the problem of the pirates. Besides, I'm also basking in the glory of the Ming army. Hu Zongxian and Su Wei had already set up the trap 2 years ago. I just took advantage of the situation to pull in the net. Li Beihai said, I'm relieved to see that you're such a troublemaker. Only a troublemaker has a high chance of becoming an evolved human. Evolver. That's the title of the awakened. I'll reach that stage sooner or later. Bai Xiaowen grasped the meaning behind Li Beihai's words. Are you saying that the condition for becoming an evolver is to unify the dimensions? Yes, this is a secret among the high-level awakened. Li Beihai decided to reveal it in advance. After the awakened reach level 10, they will be matched to some planes that show signs of unification. As long as you assist in the unification of the plane, you can complete the transition of life and become an evolver. How powerful are evolved humans? Bai Xiaowen asked. Li Beihai shook his head. I don't know. Old Devil said, I've only heard that there's a huge gap between the awakened and the awakened. They can't be compared at all. In front of an evolver, the awakened are like children in front of an adult. They don't even have the ability to resist. After a pause, Old Devil said, do you still remember the invasion of the Balrog's arm at the end of the battle in Jinghai City? The 3 people who cut off the Balrog's arm in the end were all evolvers. You'll know when you think about it. Bai Xiaowen recalled those 3 people. He had to admit that he still couldn't measure the strength of those 3 people. For this information, I think it's more appropriate to set the guild contribution points at 800 to 1000 points. Although the difficulty of the Jiajing dimension isn't as high as the 3 kingdoms, it's still a mid-high level dimension. The news of the Woka pirates losing so many leaders is indeed explosive. This information can generate a lot of derivative value, Old Devil said. Li Beihai said, then let's set it at 900 points. It had to be said that the guild contribution points reward wasn't decided by Li Beihai alone. Every month, the amount of contribution points the guild gave out, the information, equipment, items, and skill books that were used to purchase all had to be sorted out and filed. Then, the higher-ups of the guild would randomly select and evaluate them. It wasn't just the contribution point system that was like this. The guild's contracts with the awakened, contracts with the scavengers, that was, clearing out the mutated beasts and spirit world creatures along the route from one place to another, and business contracts all had to be filed and checked by the guild at any time. Without rules, nothing could be accomplished. If any power wanted to become big and strong, it had to be fair. At the very least, it had to be relatively fair. Bai Xiaowen still remembered his guild contribution points. He was now a full-fledged point hog. Combined, he and Li Shi's guild contribution points had exceeded 10,000 points. As the saying went, gather your strength to do big things. Whether it was the merit points they earned while exploring the spirit world or the contribution points they earned in the guild, the 2 of them had all been gathered together and deposited with Bai Xiaowen. I want to buy this equipment, Bai Xiaowen said as he rummaged through an item in the guild storage. Agate silver ring, binds after equipping, quality, hero, gold, equipment position, head, equipment requirements, 20 spirit points, attributes, spirit +3, constitution +3, additional skills, spirit recovery speed increases by 20%, durability description. This precious headdress is the culmination of the painstaking efforts of Chinese and Western craftsmen. It's a rare work of art. This is the treasure of the guild storage, Li Beihai said with a smile. I knew that you'd be up to no good if you didn't use your contribution points. Li Shi said, Dad, look at our guild storage. Other than a few pieces of gold equipment worth 10,000 contribution points, what else is there? Xiaowen basically has all the equipment except for this headdress. Li Beihai said, look at you, little girl. I just said. Xiao Bai earned his contribution points with his own abilities. How could I not allow him to exchange it? If someone exchanged it for a piece of gold equipment, it means that he has made a great contribution to the guild. I can't thank him enough. Bai Xiaowen did not believe Li Beihai when he said that this was the treasure of the guild storage. Last time, he and Li Shi saw with their own eyes that Li Beihai was in charge of the guild storage. There were more than 10 sets of rare gold beeswax in there. There must be more good stuff. Thinking about it, Super Gods was a guild with a long history. Although their performance in the league was a little lackluster, they used to be able to compete for the first place. How could they not have any good stuff after decades of accumulation? The guild storage managed by the logistics department was only the outer storage. Chapter 382. After recording the information about the spirit realm, the door to the office was pushed open. Li Shi's mother personally came in and handed the two young eagles to Bai Xiaowen. The two young eagles resisted at first, but they quickly recalled their master's aura and surrendered before Li Shi handed them a piece of mutant beast meat. They chirped non-stop. Li Beihai and Bai Xiaowen looked at the two women teasing the young carvings and felt quite happy. Old Monster took the initiative to leave. By the way, there's one more thing, Li Beihai said to Bai Xiaowen. Miss Yen from your school contacted the guild. She wants you to go to school as soon as you come back. It's important. Ah, should I give her a call? Bai Xiaowen took out his phone and started charging it in Li Beihai's office. The qualifiers for the CUAA League are over, and the nationals are next semester. I don't know why she's calling me now. Li Beihai shook his head. I'm afraid it's hard to explain over the phone. It's better if you go back to school and talk to Miss Yen face to face. Bai Xiaowen thought about it and agreed. If it wasn't important, Yan Xiaoxin wouldn't have left him a message through the guild's channel. Li Shi hadn't been home for a while, so he decided to stay at home for a few days to spend time with his parents. Bai Xiaowen drove back to school by himself. President, there's one more thing. It's about Guantai Island's Boda Guild. Bai Xiaowen thought about it for a moment. Of course, the fewer people who knew about this, the better. However, Li Beihai and his wife were not outsiders. If it was just Bai Xiaowen's matter, it would be fine. However, if the Boda Guild wanted revenge, Li Shi would definitely be involved as well. It was reasonable for Bai Xiaowen to let Li Beihai and his wife know about this matter. After Bai Xiaowen finished speaking, Li Beihai's expression became serious. Zhao Zhixiong died, and then his partner Tai Shuixing left. Li Beihai frowned, and began to consider the possibility that the upper echelons of the Bo-Tu Guild knew the truth. Sigh, if only we could kill that Tai Shuixing too. Nanny Li sighed. The corner of Bai Xiaowen's mouth twitched. She was indeed the wife of the president of the super gods. Her words were filled with murderous intent, unlike the typical housewife. Li Beihai said, Xiao Bai has already done her best. The other party has a reversion item and is mentally prepared. It's not easy to make a move. Under such circumstances, signing the loser's clause and making the other party promise not to say anything is already the best choice. Did the gambling guild really not send anyone over to pressure or sue the officials? Bai Xiaowen asked. Li Beihai nodded and said with certainty, no. If there was, there's no way I wouldn't have heard of it. Maybe the people from the Beta Guild were fooled, Nanny Li said. That's possible. However, we still can't let our guard down. Li Beihai thought for a while and instructed Bai Xiaowen, keep this matter to yourself. Other than Tai Shuixing, only the four of us know. Don't mention it again. Bai Xiaowen nodded. I understand. Oh right, did Zhao Zhixiong drop any good equipment after killing him? Be careful and don't expose it to avoid arousing suspicion, Li Beihai said. Speaking of this, Bai Xiaowen sighed. When I killed him, it was long past the time for legitimate self-defense, so it was considered an active attack. His original combat rating was only C level, and it dropped to D level. I was also unlucky enough to draw 1/3 chance of a walkover, so I didn't get anything. Zhao Zhixiong and Bai Xiaowen were both level 5 heroes, so it was normal for them to get a C-level kill rating. Therefore, the rules of the spiritual realm didn't encourage Awakened to kill each other. Instead, they made various restrictions, such as lowering the combat rating of those who attacked first and raising the combat rating of those who defended themselves, so as to limit the infighting among the Awakened. Of course, the rules were dead, but people were alive. Awakened could still take advantage of the loopholes in the rules and take the initiative to attack and cheat the right to self-defense. This was unavoidable, so there was no need to elaborate. Li Beihai was relieved. That's good. Without any of Zhao Zhixiong's belongings, it won't arouse suspicion. After a pause, Li Beihai continued, even if this matter is exposed in the end, it's not a big deal. Our Super God Guild is not a pushover in Jinghai base city that anyone can bully. If the Beta Guild really comes, I'll back you up. Bai Xiaowen gave Li Beihai a thumbs up in his heart and thanked the wise and mighty president. After that, Bai Xiaowen drove back to school. Before the off-road vehicle left the garage, he sent a message to Yan Xiaoxin. In the end, Yan Xiaoxin replied immediately, saying that she was also at school and asked Bai Xiaowen to meet her when she arrived. What's going on? It's quite urgent. Bai Xiaowen looked at the time on the car's computer. It was already 9 p.m., considering that he would be back at school even later. Bai Xiaowen stepped on the accelerator slightly. However, it turned out that sometimes, one couldn't rush things. More haste, less speed. At the school gate, Bai Xiaowen's off-road vehicle scraped a bicycle that came out from inside. A female university student on the bicycle fell sideways like a puppet. Bai Xiaowen immediately stopped the car and turned off the engine to check. To his surprise, the person he had scraped was someone he knew. "You're Senior Bayani?" Bai Xiaowen recognized her. Wasn't she Jinghai University's cheerleading team member, Bayani? Bayani rubbed her ankle. There was a trace of anger on her pretty face, but when she looked up and saw Bai Xiaowen, her anger dissipated. Instead, she smiled. "It's you. What a coincidence." Bai Xiaowen said helplessly, "I'd rather not be so coincidental." "Did you have a bad fall?" "It's okay. Actually, you didn't hit me. I was shocked and fell." Bayani said with a smile, "I didn't expect to see you after falling. My luck is pretty good. Let me help you up." Bai Xiaowen reached out his hand. Bayani's arm was white and tender, like a juicy carrot. With this help, Bai Xiaowen realized that Bayani had sprained her ankle. It seemed that she had fallen in shock and sprained her ankle. At this moment, some students who were passing by the entrance of Jinghai University had already stopped to watch. After all, Bai Xiaowen was the captain of the school team in the school tree. He was a famous person. Bayani had a hot body and a pretty face. Even in Jinghai University, where beauties were as common as clouds, she was enough to leave a deep impression. Bai Xiaowen frowned slightly when he felt the gazes of the people around him. He felt that this was a bit troublesome. Although he didn't hit her, this scene was enough to cause a misunderstanding in other people's eyes. "I'm fine. Junior Xiaowen, you can go about your business," Bayani said. "I'll take you to the infirmary." Bai Xiaowen opened the back door of the off-road vehicle. "It's really not necessary." Bayani declined, but Bai Xiaowen still helped her into the car. As for the bicycle, it was parked in the bicycle shed on the right inside the school gate. "It's fate, Junior Xiaowen." Bayani didn't seem to realize that she was hurt at all. She said happily. Bai Xiaowen was a bit speechless. "Fate? This was fate. I called you last time, but you didn't contact me. Are you too busy?" Bayani tried to strike up a conversation. I guess so. I just came back from the spiritual realm today," Bai Xiaowen said. "Senior, I'm sorry. I'll treat you to a meal next time. Why do you have to do it another day? How about today? Let's go for a midnight snack." Bayani's eyes were sparkling. "It's too late today. Ms. Yan is looking for me. Also, I want to catch up on some sleep," Bai Xiaowen said as he drove. Actually, treating her to a meal was just a formality. Logically speaking, she should have humbly declined. He didn't expect Bayani to agree so easily. "Then tomorrow night. What do you think?" Bayani pouted. "Okay," Bai Xiaowen said. Although Bai Xiaowen wasn't the one who hit her, Bayani's fall was related to him. He should treat her to a meal as an apology. The car drove all the way to the school's infirmary, which was what Jinghai University's students called the vet station behind the scenes. The doctors and nurses in the infirmary weren't very skilled, but they had no problem treating small things like ankle sprains. Bai Xiaowen received a text from Yan Xiaoxin. "Are you there yet?" "Yes, I'm in the infirmary." "What's wrong?" "A senior fell and got hurt." "It's related to me," Bai Xiaowen said succinctly. I'm coming to find you. Which infirmary are you in? The one near the north gate. Yan Xiaoxin was really in a hurry. She rode a small tram and saw Bai Xiaowen and Bai Yani at the north gate infirmary. Oh, she's the one who got hurt. Yan Xiaoxin also recognized Bai Yani, the cheerleader. She smiled and said, "What a coincidence." The captain of the school team bumped into a cheerleader. It's going to be the headline of the Jinghai University Forum. Bai Yani was applying ice to her ankle. She sucked in cold air and didn't forget to defend Bai Xiaowen. "Ms. Yan, it wasn't him. I fell down myself." Yan Xiaoxin looked at her ankle and comforted her. Then she walked to the infirmary with Bai Xiaowen. "Ms. Yan, why are you in such a hurry to find me?" Bai Xiaowen asked. "It's urgent," Yan Xiaoxin whispered. "Another treasure zone is about to open. Are you interested?" Treasure zone? Bai Xiaowen thought of the treasure zone in the Rift Valley of Broken Back Mountain. He smiled and said, "I'm not interested. You can't find side missions in the treasure zone. The leveling efficiency is not as good as in the real spirit realm. You're weird. Most awakened ones think that the treasure zone is better than the spirit realm, whether it's in terms of safety or benefits," Yan Xiaoxin said helplessly. "Ha ha ha. Let's not talk about this. Ms. Yan, you wouldn't talk to me about the treasure zone for no reason, right?" Bai Xiaowen caught Yan Xiaoxin's true meaning. "What treasure zone is it? Do I have to go?" Yan Xiaoxin felt like she had been seen through. She said helplessly, "Yes, the school wants you to lead the team in. What's in it for me?" Bai Xiaowen asked reflexively. Yan Xiaoxin shook her head helplessly. "You really don't do anything without benefits. Isn't the free access enough?" Bai Xiaowen rubbed his chin as if he was deep in thought. "There's been quite a lot going on recently. Not to mention the several interviews, there's also the fan meeting arranged by my manager, in my shop in the virtual lobby. Also, I have to make a batch of potions." Seeing Yan Xiaoxin's face getting darker and darker, Bai Xiaowen laughed and changed the topic. "But since my alma mater needs me, I'll do my best. I'm definitely going to the treasure zone this time." Yan Xiaoxin was speechless. "Ms. Yan, if you look at me like that, I'll get shy." Bai Xiaowen coughed. Yan Xiaoxin quickly looked away and flipped her red hair to cover the blush on her face. It felt weird to be flirted with by a student, but Yan Xiaoxin did not hate it. However, Yan Xiaoxin was still a little suspicious. "Why did you suddenly agree so readily?" Yan Xiaoxin remembered that when she went to recruit students during the summer vacation, Bai Xiaowen asked all the recruitment teachers to write down the conditions of the admission reward and held a secret auction. Although Bai Xiaowen was only 17 years old, at the time, Yan Xiaoxin no longer saw Bai Xiaowen as an inexperienced teenager after that secret auction. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, "Isn't it good that I agreed readily? Do I have to give you 8 or 10 conditions before you're satisfied?" "Of course not. Forget it, I won't ask anymore." Yan Xiaoxin made a wise choice. The treasure zone that fluctuated this time is called the Dead Spirit Lake. It's a large space with an entrance at the bottom of a lake. After listening to Yan Xiaoxin's brief introduction of the Dead Spirit Lake, Bai Xiaowen nodded and asked another key question. "Which treasure does the school need from the Dead Spirit Lake?" Obviously, just like how Yan Xiaoxin had purchased the Dragon Blood Tea Tree's treasured leaves in the Broken Spine Mountain's Great Rift Valley, this time, she would definitely need a treasure with spirit power in the Dead Spirit Lake. Otherwise, Yan Xiaoxin would not have been so anxious to find Bai Xiaowen and persuade him to participate in the exploration of the Dead Spirit Lake. Previously, when they were in the Great Rift Valley's treasured land, Bai Xiaowen had not shown enough strength to compete with Qi Ruifeng and the other powerhouses. Yan Xiaoxin did not have much hope. Later, Bai Xiaowen gave her an unexpected surprise and purchased a lot of Dragon Blood Tea Tree's treasured leaves. Now, Bai Xiaowen had proven his dominance in the Jianhai district through a perfect 1 versus 5 victory. Bai Xiaowen was already Jinghai University's trump card. It could be said that as long as Bai Xiaowen entered the Dead Spirit Lake, there was a high chance that he would be able to retrieve the designated treasure with spirit power. Yan Xiaoxin was no longer surprised by Bai Xiaowen's deductive ability. She nodded. Yes, there is a monster in the Dead Spirit Lake called the Phantom Hydra. Principal, what the school needs is the eyeball of the Phantom Hydra, at least of the leader level. Is that it? Bai Xiaowen asked. Yan Xiaoxin thought for a moment. There are still many good things in the Dead Spirit Lake that are useful to high-level awakened, such as the nether grass, the Dead Spirit Essence, and so on. You can collect them. When you come back, I can buy them at a high price. Of course, these things are ranked after the Phantom Hydra's eyeball. Chapter 383. Yan Xiaoxin felt a lot more relaxed after settling this matter. She glanced at the infirmary through the glass and suddenly frowned. A playful smile appeared on her face. What's wrong with Bayani? She doesn't look like she's injured. He was speechless. Senior Bai, who was supposed to have sprained her ankle, had tiptoed over to eavesdrop on them using the glass as a cover. How could she sprain her ankle with such agility? If Yan Xiaoxin could sense it, Bai Xiaowen could sense it too with his spirit talent and spirit attribute. He had to admit that Bayani's acting was very realistic. Or rather, she was so engrossed in her acting that even someone like Bai Xiaowen, who was very observant, did not realize she was faking her injury. Of course, that was also because Bai Xiaowen did not pay attention to her. Now that he had his suspicions, Bai Xiaowen recalled where Bayani had fallen. If she had sprained her ankle, her right foot should have been injured. However, Bayani's left foot was injured. I just came back from the spiritual realm, so I'm a little tired. Plus, Bayani is someone I know, so I'm not as cautious. Bai Xiaowen reflected in his mind. Fortunately, Yan Xiaoxin did not ask further. She yawned and rubbed her slim waist as she said, I'm tired. I'm going back to rest. The Dead Soul Lake will open in a week. Don't forget to do your homework during this time. Bai Xiaowen nodded in agreement. Bai Xiaowen returned to the infirmary after sending Yan Xiaoxin off. Bayani was already sitting on a bench when he went around the glass partition of the infirmary. Her injured ankle was raised high, showing off her slender legs. I'll send you back to your dorm. Although Bai Xiaowen realized Bayani was faking her injury, he did not plan to expose her. He did not plan to leave her in the infirmary either. However, Bai Xiaowen was still a little wary of Bayani's scheming. Although this beautiful senior from the cheerleading team was very pretty, he did not want to get too close to her. The off-road vehicle drove all the way to Bayani's dorm. We're here, but it's not convenient for me to enter the female dormitory. Senior, you can call your roommate, Bai Xiaowen said. Bayani nodded and took out her small phone to dial a number. Not long after, a beautiful woman with a graceful figure came downstairs, which surprised Bai Xiaowen. Bayani's roommate was Zhao Yuding, the team leader of the school team. Zhao Yuding was stunned when she saw Bai Xiaowen beside the off-road vehicle. She had a complicated expression on her face, but it quickly turned cold. Did you hit him? You really know how to knock into things. Bai Xiaowen shrugged his shoulders and did not explain further. Bayani continued to defend Bai Xiaowen, and at the same time, she tried to make Bai Xiaowen like her. He didn't hit me. I was careless. Zhao Yuding snorted and held Bayani's arm. Bayani turned her head and smiled charmingly. Junior Xiaowen, don't forget to treat us to dinner tomorrow night. I'll be waiting for your call. Zhao Yuding paused for a moment, but she did not ask any questions and continued to go upstairs. Bai Xiaowen looked at the backs of the two beauties and smiled. He then drove back to Taoran restaurant to sleep. After entering the dormitory, Bayani pulled her arm away from Zhao Yuding's shoulder. Thank you, Yuding. Are you okay? Zhao Yuding was a little suspicious. I'm fine. Tell me, what's going on? Didn't you have a dinner date with someone? Is it okay for you to stand him up? Zhao Yuding asked. I was going to go, but I saw a car at the school gate. I didn't pay attention at the time and fell down, Bayani explained. I didn't hurt myself, but I saw Bai Xiaowen get out of the car. Don't you think it's fate? I had an idea and said that I sprained my ankle. Didn't I earn the considerate company of my idol and an intimate date? Zhao Yuding pursed her lips and said, "Aren't you afraid that he'll see through you and make a fool of yourself?" "Forget it, he can't walk away when he sees a beauty. Even if he saw through you, he wouldn't reject you." "Yuding, don't say that I'm not hurt," Bayani reminded her. "I know. I'll keep it a secret for you." Zhao Yuding pursed her lips again. She did not know why, but she felt an indescribable anger in her heart. "That's good. I have to seize this opportunity. I don't want to be an assistant for the rest of my life after graduation." The next day, when Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes, it was already noon. His exclusive agent, Sister Zheng, called, "Are you up?" Bai Xiaowen switched to the speakerphone and sat up in bed. He stretched and said, "I just woke up. Have you rested enough? Do you have time in the afternoon?" Sister Zheng asked. "Yes, I do." Bai Xiaowen walked into the bathroom in his pajamas. "I'll organize a fan meet and greet at 3 p.m. Before 3 p.m., I've also selected 2 important interviews. One of them is from a major newspaper in Beijing that Super Godly Potion Shop helped to contact. The articles they gave are all very good." After Sister Zheng entered work mode, she spoke very quickly. "Also, a representative from the virtual battle platform came to contact me. They want to obtain the authorization to use your template and release it on the player platform. I thought about it and decided to arrange their negotiations at the fan meeting. This will be more beneficial for you." Bai Xiaowen nodded and smiled. "That makes sense." Sister Zheng then reported. Bai Xiaowen's Weibo followers had already exceeded 1 million, and the number of people registered on his fan website had also exceeded 500,000. Any one of his posts on Weibo would have hundreds of thousands of likes and tens of thousands of replies. He could be considered a celebrity with a high status. It could be said that the fan management strategy proposed by Sister Zheng at that time had already achieved initial results. Sister Zheng's next plan was to form a hardcore fan group such as a support group. According to Sister Zheng, the foundation was already in place. On this foundation, they had to cultivate a group of loyal fans who could come and fight when they came. They would not be easily swayed by public opinion and would not be easily swayed by rumors. After having loyal fans, they could further expand their influence and lay the foundation to become a national idol or even a world-class superstar. And this fan meeting was the key action of the next step of the plan. After Bai Xiaowen washed up, he met with Sister Zheng at a coffee shop outside Jinghai University. They did 2 interviews in succession and then drove to the fan meeting. On the way, Bai Xiaowen said, "Sister Zheng, I'm essentially an awakened." Chapter 384. Sister Zheng's thoughts were clear. Bai Xiaowen only mentioned it once, and she realized that Bai Xiaowen didn't like these tedious mundane things. Instead, he wanted to devote his energy to training and improving his strength. Sister Zheng was 100% supportive of Bai Xiaowen's idea. Just as she said, the foundation of an awakened was strength, and strength determined one's status in the real world. Everything she did, such as the fan group, the interview, and so on, was to fully explore the celebrity effect brought by Bai Xiaowen's strength and increase Bai Xiaowen's global fame. However, the ultimate goal of increasing his global fame was still to help Bai Xiaowen grow stronger faster. Bai Xiaowen nodded. "In about a week, I will disappear for a while. In the next few days, I have to prepare well. I can't waste too much energy." In addition to preparing for the Dead Soul Lake, Bai Xiaowen also had to make a batch of perfect-grade potions to supplement the Super Godly Potion Shop. He also had to deal with the business of the virtual shop. He was really busy. "You're going to the spiritual realm again? Didn't you just come back?" Sister Zheng misunderstood. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said with a smile, "I'm not going to the spiritual realm. I'm going to a special treasure space on Earth called the Dead Soul Lake." Sister Zheng suddenly understood. She thought for a moment and said, "No problem. Actually, it's mainly because you just came back. The interview and fan group matters have accumulated together. After today, there won't be so many things. You can prepare in peace. A total of more than 200 fans had obtained the right to participate in this fan meeting. These people were carefully selected by Sister Zheng. They supported Bai Xiaowen very much and had hopes of becoming the first batch of hardcore fans. A few of them were even administrators of Bai Xiaowen's fan site. According to Sister Zheng, these people already had the tendency to form a group spontaneously. Regarding the defamation and derogatory remarks about Bai Xiaowen on the internet, they showed super strong fighting power or destructive power. They were already hardcore supporters. However, the spontaneously formed fan support group was, after all, a wild organization. Although their fighting power was strong, their destructive power was also very strong. If they were not careful, they could easily cause trouble for Bai Xiaowen. In another time and space, many die-hard fans of Little Fresh Meats would often unknowingly bring hate to their idols with their comments. As the saying goes, one fan is better than 10 haters. Sister Zheng was now forming a fan club to guide these passionate fans on the right path. What was right? Any comments or actions that were beneficial to Bai Xiaowen's reputation and would not attract criticism were all correct. Hello, Xiaowen. My name is Sui. A girl of about 15 or 16 years old with a delicate body and a voice as soft as cotton candy looked at Bai Xiaowen with a blushing face. I know. On the Shark Live streaming platform, your ID is E, right? Thank you very much for your support. Bai Xiaowen took the initiative to extend his hand, revealing a refreshing smile. E's palms were full of sweat. She shook Bai Xiaowen's hand and then returned to her seat in a daze. After a few seconds, she cried out, I talked to Xiaowen and even shook his hand. God, I didn't manage to film it. What a big mistake. Hello, Xiaowen. My name is Wu Mingchen. Like you, I'm from the Crimson Fire District. I've found all your competition highlights and promotional videos. You're really, really strong. You're my idol. A little boy with a few acne on his face shook Bai Xiaowen's hand vigorously. His face was flushed with excitement. Your rank on the player platform is much higher than my rank on the Awakened platform. I heard that you've already reached Platinum rank 1. Is that true? Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. Wu Mengchen did not expect her idol to know her so well. She touched her head and said with joy and embarrassment, yes, I'll continue to work hard and try to get to Diamond as soon as possible. But right now, I still want to control your character and kill everyone. My agent has already received a request from the Virtual Battle Company. Your wish will come true soon, Bai Xiaowen said. Yeah, that's great. I'll be the first one to buy it. Wu Mingchen returned to her seat in a daze. Next, Bai Xiaowen's fans went on stage. Without exception, he read out the information filled in by the fans, mentioned some of the achievements they were proud of, or the support they gave to Bai Xiaowen. Every fan who chatted with Bai Xiaowen was so excited that their eyes shone. Sister Zheng watched the scene through the window. She secretly sighed. Some people were born to be idols. For example, Bai Xiaowen had all the characteristics of a super idol. Not to mention other things, just browsing through the information of more than 200 fans in 10 minutes and accurately matching them to their seats, this terrifying ability of eidetic memory is not something an ordinary hunter can achieve. Every fan who communicated with Bai Xiaowen felt like they had been baptized. Their whole person was sublimated. If they also had settings such as favorability and loyalty, they would definitely see the value of the values soar rapidly. It was worth mentioning that Bai Xiaowen also met another local tycoon who had strongly supported him on the Shark platform, Sugar Duckling. Sugar Duckling's real name was Tang Li. The information was not very detailed. She looked quiet and did not like to talk much. On the surface, it was hard to believe that this quiet girl in her 20s would spend so much money on online platforms. I didn't watch live broadcasts before, but I saw you by chance. You're the only streamer I like. I hope you can continue to work hard, but don't be too tired. No matter if you succeed or fail, peak or trough, I will support you in my own way. Sugar Duckling's voice was also soft. Compared with Yi's cotton candy voice, it was less sweet but more scholarly. Each had their own merits. When Sister Jing saw the scene, she secretly calculated for a while. Yi and Sugar Duckling were the most suitable candidates to be the leaders of Bai Xiaowen's support group. Judging from their performance and personalities, the quiet and rational Sugar Duckling was more suitable to be the group leader. However, Sugar Duckling's background was a little mysterious. The information she filled in was also vague. This made Sister Zheng a little worried. In comparison, Yi's background was very clear. She was the daughter of a large entertainment group in Huaxia. It would be safer for her to be the group leader. It's a pity that the proud princess didn't come. I've always wanted to see who this godly tycoon who first supported Bai Xiaowen is, Sister Jing thought to herself. Suddenly, her phone rang. As an exclusive agent, Sister Jing had a total of 3 phones. One was for her private life, one was for her work partners, and one was registered on the main page of the fan website for public contact. Sister Jing knew that it was the phone for public contact when she heard the ringtone. Since she had nothing to do, she took it out and chose to answer the call. When she was busy, this phone was usually picked up by the agent team. "Hello, this is Bai Xiaowen's agent." "Hello. Bai Xiaowen is holding a fan meeting today, right?" "Yes. However, due to time constraints, the fan meeting can only be attended by members who have been invited." "I'm sorry." Sister Jing thought that it was a member who had not been invited, so she explained out of habit. "No, I have been invited." On the other end of the phone, there was a slightly cold female voice. "It's just that I'm in Beijing and didn't have time to come over." "Oh, and you are. I don't want to reveal my real name for the time being. You can just call me Proud Princess." On the other end of the phone, there was a hint of arrogance in her voice. "You're the Proud Princess? What's the invitation number you got?" For safety reasons, Sister Jing asked. 9805, the Proud Princess replied. Sister Jing quickly checked and confirmed that there was no mistake. Was it really the Proud Princess herself? Sister Zheng's gossipy soul burned fiercely in her heart. She wanted to crawl through the phone to see what the other party looked like and ask for her name. Of course, Sister Zheng, who had a high level of professionalism, still restrained her emotions. "It's really you. I'd like to thank you on behalf of Bai Xiaowen for your support and encouragement." Sister Zheng smiled. "Is there anything I can help you with?" On the other end of the phone, the Proud Princess was silent for a while. "Can I talk to Xiaowen on the phone?" "Of course, do you want a video call?" Sister Jing asked. The Proud Princess sounded a little flustered. "No, it's okay. Just a voice call." "Thank you." Sister Jing shook her head regretfully. Soon, the phone was handed over to Bai Xiaowen. After listening to Sister Jing explain the situation in a low voice, Bai Xiaowen became curious about the real identity of the girl on the other end of the phone. Of course, he didn't ask rashly. After a few questions and answers, Bai Xiaowen beat around the bush. "Proud Princess." I'll just call you Princess. If it's convenient, can you give me your address and name? Our meet and greet is a small gift with my autograph. Although it's not something expensive, it's the first gift I'm giving to everyone. After all, it has a different meaning. Sister Jing secretly gave him a thumbs up. Unexpectedly, the Proud Princess on the other end of the phone refused. "Xiaowen, I'm willing to be a spectator in a corner where no one knows. I'll watch you under the spotlight and silently cheer for you. Don't you think that's pretty good?" Seeing that the Proud Princess saw through his little trick, Bai Xiaowen shook his head helplessly. "Although I really want to get to know you, I respect your wishes. I wish you happiness every day and that you'll always be the Proud Princess." The Proud Princess sounded a little touched. She was silent for a while. "Thank you. Maybe we'll meet soon." "Really? You know me, but I don't know who you are. Isn't that a little unfair?" Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. The Proud Princess, that depends on fate. After hanging up the phone, Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said with a smile, I still don't know who the proud princess is. But I still want to thank her. The proud princess was the first to support Bai Xiaowen. She was the godly tycoon who gave Bai Xiaowen rockets. With Bai Xiaowen's identity as an awakened, he didn't care about money. However, rockets didn't equal money. Rockets meant support and affirmation. This was what Bai Xiaowen was really grateful for and cherished. He said softly, "Who is the proud princess? I admire her so much. She's so hard-hearted." Another chubby round-faced girl next to her agreed. That's right. If Xiaowen asked for my name and address so gently, I definitely wouldn't be able to resist telling him. To be able to reject such a gentle Xiaowen, she's simply an iceberg. The fan meet and greet was coming to an end. Sister Zhen contacted the representatives of the virtual battle company and invited them to come over for a discussion. Bai Xiaowen stood up and said, "Thank you for coming today. Next, I have something important to announce." More than 200 fans perked up their ears. The representatives of the virtual battle company are coming. They're here mainly to discuss the contract with me. Wu Mengchen stood up and said excitedly, "Are they here to discuss the contract for your template image to enter the player's platform?" "Yes." Bai Xiaowen gave an affirmative answer. "Wow, that's great." Wu Mengchen clenched her fist and said, "I've always wanted to play my idol. No, I've always wanted to experience what it's like to play my idol." Whoosh. Everyone burst into laughter. However, after laughing, everyone expressed their anticipation. Xiaowen is so strong. I wonder what kind of hero he'll be as. I'll buy it no matter how expensive it is. He has such a strong template and so many summon creatures. He can crush people easily. I want to play Xiaowen too. I want to play Xiaowen +1. I want to play Xiaowen +10010. Seeing that they were drifting, Bai Xiaowen quickly pulled the brakes. Hey, don't talk nonsense. If you guys don't have anything to do tonight, let's get together. After I finish my discussion with the virtual battle company, let's have dinner and sing karaoke together. How about that? Of course, you have to be home before 9 o'clock tonight. My agent will hire a car to send everyone back. Among the 200 fans, a considerable portion of them were fangirls around 15 years old. The rest were young girls around 20 years old. There were very few boys like Wu Mengchen. Singing karaoke too late was not good for most female fans, especially underage female fans. It was also easy to cause protests from their families. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen made such an arrangement. After Bai Xiaowen announced his decision to sing karaoke, the room was filled with whistles and cheers that almost blew the roof off. More than 200 fans were carefully selected by Sister Zhen. They all responded to Bai Xiaowen's call and decided to stay for dinner and karaoke. Bai Xiaowen, accompanied by Sister Zhen, walked out of the fan meeting venue and met with the representatives of the virtual battle company. Chapter 385. There were 2 representatives sent by the virtual combat company. Bai Xiaowen knew one of them. It was a fat middle-aged man named Li. He was the person in charge of the virtual combat company's Jinghai base city branch. When Bai Xiaowen's virtual store first shipped goods, he had signed a guarantee agreement with the Jinghai branch of the virtual combat company. The person who showed up at that time was this person in charge, Li. Li was just a standard intermediate hunter. He didn't have much pursuit of personal strength. As a middle-aged man, he longed for a comfortable and decent life. For the virtual combat company, it was more convenient to hire a hunter to be in charge of the branch's affairs when storing and transporting psionic items. There were many hunters like Li who weren't strong and had limited potential. They didn't want to go to the spiritual realm, and they only dared to go to low-risk places in the wilderness. Their strength was basically stagnant. It was better to give up on the road of evolution and enjoy life. It should be noted that even the hunters at the bottom of the food chain had a better life than most ordinary people. This was also the reason why the hunter profession was sought after by many parents. And this time, Li was just accompanying them in the negotiation. He introduced his companion to Bai Xiaowen in a grand manner. "Student Bai, this is Yuan Hongji, the representative sent by our company's headquarters. He is fully responsible for the issue of your image and the right to use the template." After shaking hands with Bai Xiaowen, Yuan Hongji looked at Bai Xiaowen carefully and said with a smile, "Bai Xiaowen has more of a celebrity temperament than I thought." Bai Xiaowen greeted the two and introduced his personal agent, Sister Zheng, to Yuan Hongji. The benefits of having a personal agent were reflected. Bai Xiaowen and Enli sat on the side drinking tea and chatting. They only needed to watch Sister Zheng and Yuan Hongji negotiate. In terms of the right to use Bai Xiaowen's image template, our company's intention is to buy it out for 10 million. Of course, the scope of the buyout is limited to the Virtual Combat Company's player platform. This price is very sincere for an intermediate hunter. This is a win-win situation. When Bai Xiaowen's image is logged on the player platform, the attention he receives will also skyrocket. Is that so? Sister Jing smiled. I have a different opinion. Please speak. In front of a beautiful lady, Yuan Hongji's demeanor was still very good. The Virtual Battle Company buys out more than 100 hunter templates every year. Among these 100 hunters, only less than 10 are able to get a certain amount of exposure. As for the other 90 or so awakened ones, their personal world popularity did not increase significantly. I have done statistics on this, and here is a table. Mr. Yuan, please take a closer look. Is there any difference between my statistical data and your company's real data? Sister Zheng handed a folder to Yuan Hongji. Yuan Hongji's originally relaxed expression was replaced by a trace of seriousness. He didn't need to look at the document to know that Sister Zheng was telling the truth. The Virtual Battle Company bought the Awaken template mainly to enrich the player platform's huge database, enrich the character selection, and make the games on the player platform more playable. Promotion resources were limited. Every year, only a few dozen Awaken characters were promoted. Excluding the Heavenly King and Giant class Awaken ones, how much promotion resources were left for the newcomers? Yuan Hongji pretended to look at the document while organizing his words in his mind. Soon, he completed his mental self-adjustment. He raised his head and smiled again. This document is very detailed. Ms. Zheng's information is very accurate. After a pause, Yuan Hongji continued, Madam Zheng, you can rest assured that Bai Xiaowen's Awakened template belongs to the top-notch characters with excellent potential. Among the newcomers who have bought out this year, we will definitely strongly recommend him. Sister Zheng smiled. I'm very happy that we can reach a basic consensus. However, I hope that your company can put Bai Xiaowen in a more important position, and not just as a newcomer. A more important position? Yes. The Year of Spirit Edition 97 is coming. The Virtual Battle Company should have a new version to update, right? I hope that Bai Xiaowen can have an important appearance animation in the opening CG of the new version in 1997. Sister Zheng revealed her true purpose. Yuan Hongji's face changed, and he shook his head repeatedly. That's impossible. I can't agree. The so-called opening CG of the new version refers to an animation that is 10 to 10 seconds long. Many of the classic Awakened characters on the player platform will appear in it. Students who have played the King of Fighters can imagine the opening animation of the King of Fighters 97. Dozens of fighting characters take turns to pose and show their faces. Among them, the protagonist team, Kyokusanagi team, Iori Yagami, and the Hell Band have precious action scenes that are impressive. This 10-second CG can be said to be extremely valuable. Many Awaken would rather pay to squeeze in. This is a huge advertising effect. Every CG of the Virtual Battle Company was so well done that some people jokingly said that the Virtual Battle Company should be renamed to the Virtual Movie Company. Almost every ordinary person who used the player platform would click to watch the new version of the CG. They were familiar with every Awakened character that appeared in it, and the new faces often caused heated discussions and even made the headlines and trending searches. Sister Zheng asked for an exorbitant price. Not only did she ask the virtual battle company to put Bai Xiaowen's character into the opening cinematic of the New Year version, but she also asked for him to enjoy the same treatment as the main character. Yuan Hongji firmly refused. Sister Zheng was not discouraged. The focus of business negotiations is not to win, but to communicate with the other party and find the key point that both sides can accept. Mr. Yuan, you can take a look at my employer. His personal image, figure, temperament, and most importantly, strength template, which one is not top-notch? I can guarantee that if your company uses him as the protagonist of the opening CG, it will definitely achieve an effect beyond imagination. Yuan Hongji said, I admit that Bai Xiaowen has the potential to become a superstar, but this is only potential. In that important opening CG, there are already no less than 10 superstars. They are all classic characters on the player platform and need to occupy the main space of the CG. Let them be the foil for a newcomer? That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Classic characters are an advantage, but they are also a disadvantage. Players who are used to seeing old characters, in the new version, would they be willing to see more new characters, or continue to see old characters? New versions, new heroes, new atmosphere, and constant innovation are the foundation to attract players to continue using the platform. Yuan Hongji narrowed his eyes and began to think. Sister Zheng's words made sense. In the new version of 1997, if the opening CG was some old characters from 3, 5, or even 10 years ago, then what was the difference from the 1996 version? Without novelty, players' support for the platform will definitely drop. The virtual battle company is not the only platform for the battle. This is not a unique business. I have to ask for the company's opinion. Yuan Hongji got up and walked out of the door. After walking out of the door, Yuan Hongji looked up and saw a dark mass of people. Who are you looking for? Yuan Hongji was a little dizzy. The crowd in front of him was mostly girls, most of them 15 or 16 years old. Excuse me, are you the representative of the virtual battle company? Are you here to talk to Xiaowen about the right to use the template? Among the group of cute girls, Yi squeezed her way over. Her voice was as sweet as cotton candy, and it made people's bodies melt. Yi's voice was not pretentious and nauseating. Instead, it was truly natural, and it exuded a coquettish sweetness from the inside out. Ah, yes, before Yuan Hongji could finish his sentence, he was almost drowned out by the surging waves of voices. That's great, we must bring Xiaowen's character to the player's platform. I've wanted to try out the feeling of the Great Summoner School for a long time. Wu Mingchen, a little boy with slight acne on his face, shouted. Me too, as long as Xiaowen's character is online, I will buy it no matter how much it costs. Also, I want to collect all the skins. Another chubby girl with a round face said. Yeah, Xiaowen is so good looking, I want to buy it too. We are all loyal users of the virtual battle company's platform. Yuan Hongji finally found an opening and hurriedly expressed his gratitude on behalf of the company. Then, he asked, are you all Bai Xiaowen's fans? Yeah, we're all here to participate in the fan meeting. It's not easy to qualify for this fan meeting. My classmates and roommates are all so jealous of me. Yuan Hongji's head was dizzy from listening to this long string of blabbering. However, he also understood that the combination of the fan meeting and the negotiation was probably the agent's doing. As a mature business negotiator, Yuan Hongji did not dislike Sister Zheng's approach. Negotiators naturally had to do everything they could to show their side's advantage. This clearly showed how attractive Bai Xiaowen was to fans, especially young fans. And young people were the main consumers of the virtual battle company's platform. After finally getting rid of these fans, Yuan Hongji's attitude and position had changed slightly in the phone call with the senior management of the virtual battle company. Originally, he thought that Sister Zheng's suggestion of letting Bai Xiaowen's character be the protagonist of the new version of CG was a fantasy. Because of Bai Xiaowen's qualifications, it was almost impossible for him to even enter the CG. At most, he would show his face in the same frame as a few other outstanding newcomers. But now, Yuan Hongji felt that it was not impossible to boldly innovate and use Bai Xiaowen as the protagonist of the CG. Yuan Hongji picked up the call from the senior management of the company. He briefly explained the situation and proposed to let Bai Xiaowen be the protagonist of the CG. Your suggestion is indeed likely to succeed and further expand our company's share of the game market. However, this is too risky. Our virtual battle company's player platform has been planning for a whole year. We can't bet on a level 5 awakened. On the other end of the phone, the senior management of the company quickly gave feedback and gave Yuan Hongji the bottom line of the negotiation. Every second of the new version of the opening animation is precious. You know how important it is. The company's bottom line is that we can let Bai Xiaowen as a newcomer enjoy a frame of the opening animation. We can even create some movements for him. But it is absolutely impossible for him to be the protagonist. After a pause, the senior management said, "You can first propose to let Bai Xiaowen appear in the opening animation with the other two newcomers and share a frame of the opening animation. If this can be negotiated, even better." Yuan Hongji could only nod. "Yes, Mr. Chen. I will try my best." But the other party's agent is very difficult to deal with. On the other end of the phone, Mr. Chen gave a few words of encouragement and hung up. Yuan Hongji sighed in his heart. Mr. Chen still wanted stability and did not want to take risks. As a subordinate, Yuan Hongji could only follow orders. Back in the conference room, Yuan Hongji and Sister Zheng started talking again. In fact, Sister Zheng's initial request to let Bai Xiaowen's character be the protagonist of the CG was just asking for a sky-high price. Seeing Yuan Hongji's firm attitude, she did not insist. She took a step back and accepted Yuan Hongji's bottom line, which was to let Bai Xiaowen appear alone in the early stages of the CG and have some movements. The duration of his appearance should not be less than 1 second. This was already the treatment of a big star. In the dozens of seconds of CG, his importance was only slightly lower than that of the protagonist. Regarding this content, although it did not meet my expectations, it is still acceptable. Sister Zheng took out a stack of documents and said to Yuan Hongji with a smile, "Mr. Yuan, you have worked hard. Do you want to take a break and then we will proceed to the second item, the negotiation of the signing fee?" Didn't they finish the negotiation? Yuan Hongji was stunned for a second and subconsciously asked, 10 million yuan buyout, what's the problem? Sister Zheng decisively took over the topic and entered the second content of the negotiation. As far as I know, there are 2 types of contract templates between your company and the awakened characters. One is a buyout, and the other is a share of the profits. I have absolute confidence in my employer's potential, so a buyout contract is obviously detrimental to the employer's interests. I hope your company can provide another type of contract template, a share of the profits. Before Yuan Hongji could speak, Sister Zheng had already handed 2 stacks of documents to him. One was a buyout contract, and the other was a share of the profits. Yuan Hongji sighed. He had underestimated his opponent. He thought that he was only facing a young man. He did not expect Bai Xiaowen's agent to be so difficult to deal with. Just from these 2 contracts, it could be seen that Sister Zheng was fully prepared. How do you set the share of the profits? The share of the profits you gave me is an S-level share of the profits, which is the treatment of a superstar. It is impossible for Bai Xiaowen to enjoy 75% of the station's profits and 90% of the peripheral income. That is ridiculous. We can sign a milestone share of the profits. Sister Zheng took out the 3rd stack of documents and said with a smile. The so-called milestone contract was actually a bet contract. The bet was the revenue benefits that Bai Xiaowen brought to the platform in a certain period, including the revenue from unlocking the characters in the station, as well as the sales of the peripheral products and figurines launched in the future. If the revenue reached a certain milestone, it would be divided according to the share of the corresponding milestone. The higher the revenue, the higher Bai Xiaowen's share. Chapter 386. Yuan Hongji went out to make a phone call. The negotiation, which should have been easy, lasted until 6 o'clock in the evening. The two sides finally reached an agreement and signed a milestone-sharing contract. After reading the contents of the contract, Bai Xiaowen was once again impressed by Sister Zheng's ability. To be honest, this contract had completely exceeded his expectations. The two sides agreed that the milestone would be calculated 1 quarter after the release of the new version, which was within 3 months. The first quarter was also the quarter with the highest in-station income for new characters. Because many players would unlock new characters, and unlocking characters required payment. The price ranged from 1 yuan to 188 yuan. The difference was huge. In the later quarters, the in-station income would shrink. But if the popularity was high enough, the virtual battle company would release more skins, that is, different styles of a character, as well as peripheral income such as figurines. There was no need to talk about it. The content of the milestone was, the first quarter's total income exceeded 3 million yuan, milestone D. Bai Xiaowen would receive 10% of the income, which was a D-level sharing contract. The difficulty of earning 3 million yuan was probably equivalent to the earning power of an excellent rookie character. Exceeding 10 million yuan, milestone C, Bai Xiaowen would receive 20% of the income, which was a C-level sharing contract. The difficulty of earning 10 million yuan was equivalent to a small star character. Exceeding 30 million yuan, milestone B, Bai Xiaowen would receive 30% of the income, which was a B-level sharing contract. If the revenue reached 30 million yuan in a single quarter, it would be a quasi-level star character with a group of loyal fans. Exceeding 100 million yuan, milestone A, Bai Xiaowen would receive 40% of the income, which was an A-level sharing contract. If the revenue reached 100 million yuan in a single quarter, it would be a proper big star character. Exceeding 300 million yuan, milestone S, Bai Xiaowen would receive 50% of the income, which was an S-level sharing contract. Hunters who could reach this level were almost all superstars. Every character was a classic in the player's platform. As for the distribution of peripheral income, it was half of the in-station income. In this kind of VAM contract, the worst thing was that the first party, the virtual battle company, would play tricks, such as not giving the promised promotional resources, not solving the character bug, artificial consumption barriers, and so on. But with Sister Zheng around, none of this was a problem. In the contract, the rights and obligations of both parties were explained in detail. The list for Party A was 2 pages long, with a total of 13 major items and 69 minor items. It could be said that there were no loopholes. Of course, Yuan Hongji also listed a lot of forbidden areas for Bai Xiaowen as the second party. For example, she couldn't tarnish the platform's image, and she couldn't license the character template to other role-fighting game companies to maintain a positive image. Once either party breached the contract, they would have to pay heavy punitive compensation. The contract was valid for 2 years. After 2 years, both parties would change the contract, and the virtual battle platform would have priority to sign Bai Xiaowen. After signing the contract, both parties shook hands. Yuan Hongji said to Bai Xiaowen, "You have a very smart agent." Bai Xiaowen smiled and nodded. "I think so too. Please send your character template information to my email as soon as possible," Yuan Hongji said. "I will send you a sample as a reference later." After a pause, Yuan Hongji said, "Some new hunters like to hide some of their character abilities, so the data sent to the company is not complete. Of course, this doesn't violate the contract, but I still hope that you can provide relatively complete template information. Our purpose is to be as strong as possible on the basis of reality." Bai Xiaowen nodded. In fact, Bai Xiaowen hadn't hidden much of his strength until now. His previous trump card, the grassland-style ancient martial arts, had already been revealed during the CUAA qualifiers. Bai Xiaowen summarized his current strength. It could be divided into 3 parts. First, the Return of the Dead skill, which came with the Black Soul Stone, had a total of 8 summoned creatures, including 4 skeleton swordsmen, 1 shadow assassin, 1 undead demon arcane master, 1 stitched monster, and 1 vampire. The zombie doctor did not count, and neither did the baleful specter option that had yet to be unlocked. Bai Xiaowen still wanted to keep the baleful specter as a new trump card. Second, there were 4 combat skill slots. One was a jack-of-all-trades skill, one was a group control skill, and there was also a skill to summon the Wrath Claw. Lastly, there was the Kusanagi sword. The Kusanagi sword could be regarded as the grassland-style ancient martial arts, which contained the very violent moves of Orochi. As for the Kusanagi sword in the Jiajing Plain, Bai Xiaowen also planned to keep it as a new trump card. He wouldn't reveal it for the time being. Third, Bai Xiaowen's talent, insight, and profession skills, especially the life-saving skill Shared Life, Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle headshot effect, and Yamazaki Ruji's combat gloves, which accumulated critical strike rate. These were also part of his strength. He had also revealed them during the CUAA qualifiers. Anyone who wanted to check would be able to find out. There was no need to hide them. However, there was another important function of his profession skill, telepathy, which allowed him to read the memory fragments of summoned creatures. Bai Xiaowen didn't plan to reveal it. In any case, this ability had nothing to do with the players on the platform. Finally, there were the many exquisite items in Bai Xiaowen's inventory space. Of course, there was no need to reveal these to the public. This was because when customizing a character, they only needed Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures, equipment, and skill data. After hiding some of my trump cards, my strength is still very strong. I just don't know if the ordinary people on the player platform can make good use of my character. The strength Bai Xiaowen had revealed was, of course, very strong. During the qualifiers, he had used the strength he had revealed to defeat 5 people from Jiangnan University, including Qi Ruifeng, a powerful level 6 hero. The rules of the player platform's battles were different from the Awakened ones. They were divided into beginner, intermediate, and advanced stages. With Bai Xiaowen's current level 5 character, he could only fight in the intermediate stage. As for the Awakened ones, as long as they were strong enough, a level 4 Awakened could be matched with a level 7 or level 8 opponent. This was also for the sake of relative fairness. Otherwise, ordinary players would only unlock level 10 characters. No one would be willing to pay attention to a level 5 character like Bai Xiaowen. No matter how strong the template was, it couldn't be stronger than the level suppression. There was no doubt that a level 10 hero would be stronger than a level 5 hero. Bai Xiaowen turned on the psionic camera and selectively blocked out some things that shouldn't appear. Then, he scanned himself and generated a template. After checking it, he sent the template to Yuan Hongji's email. This matter could be considered finished. Next, Bai Xiaowen fulfilled his promise and took a group of fans to karaoke to relax. On the way, Bai Xiaowen received a message from Bayani. "Junior, where are you? I've already arrived. You said you'd treat, so you can't go back on your word." She added a sweet smiling emoji at the end. Bai Xiaowen smiled and replied, "Don't worry. I said I'd treat, so I'll definitely treat. I won't go back on my word. I've already booked a table. You can just ask the waiter to serve the food. Okay, come quickly." Bayani sent a shy emoji, causing people to daydream. Chapter 387. On the south street of Jinghai University, in front of a restaurant with a rather bourgeois atmosphere. A black business car was parked on the side of the road. The door of the passenger seat opened, and Bayani, who had carefully dressed up, got out. She brushed her hair and looked at her image in the small mirror, feeling quite satisfied. In the car, a low male voice sounded, "Is there any problem?" Bayani smiled and said, "I promise there will be no problem." "Good. If things go well, you will get the reward you deserve. I guarantee that your future will be better than being a small assistant in the Giant Gods Guild." "Got it. Thank you, President Fu. I will work hard." Bayani walked into the restaurant and reported her name. A waiter said politely, "Hello, Ms. Bayani. A Mr. Bai has booked a private room in advance. Please come with me." Bayani looked back at the black business car and quietly made an okay gesture. She was quite surprised. In the back row of the black business car, Fu Qiu and Fu Hong sat side by side. It seems that things are going well. Fu Hong smiled. To be honest, I didn't have much expectation for her, but it turns out that I underestimated her scheming. She can actually have her first date with Bai Xiaowen so smoothly. After a pause, Fu Hong said again, in the case that Yuding is unwilling to get close to Bai Xiaowen, Bayani should be the most suitable candidate to carry out the honey trap. I didn't expect this little assistant who interned in our guild's logistics department during the summer vacation to have such realistic acting skills. She can even fool Bai Xiaowen. This shows that Bai Xiaowen has a problem with his own judgment, Fu Qiu said faintly. An awakened being was fooled by ordinary people. I think his ability is limited. Fu Hong shrugged and did not argue with Fu Qiu. He continued to state his plan. Next, Bayani will take the initiative to seduce Bai Xiaowen. It's best if they can get to the point of having sex. If things go well, someone will inform Li Shi. With the temperament of the young lady of the Li Shi Guild, she will definitely not allow Bai Xiaowen to flirt with other people outside. A good show is about to start. Bayani walked into the private room and sat down. After a while, the waiter began to serve the dishes. Don't rush to serve the dishes. The host hasn't arrived yet, Bayani said in surprise. Hello, Madam Bai. This is a special request from Mr. Bai, who reserved the private room. The dishes will be served as soon as you arrive, the waiter said politely. All right then. Bayani began to wait. At first, she was able to maintain a proper sitting posture. However, when the appointed time passed and Bai Xiaowen still did not appear, she gradually became anxious. The clock pointed to 7:30. What's going on? It's been half an hour since the appointed time. Bayani sat on the chair and angrily took out her phone to call Bai Xiaowen. Sorry, the number you dialed is currently unavailable, Bayani was annoyed. What was the meaning of this? Hello, Madam Bai. Your dishes have all been served. The waiter bowed and said. Got it. Madam Bai, Mr. Bai Xiaowen, who reserved the private room, left a note for you. He said that he would pass it to you after the dishes have been served. The waiter's attentiveness perfectly reflected the professionalism of the staff in this imitation Japanese restaurant. Bayani was a little uneasy as she took the note. This meal is on me. I've already paid the bill. I won't be going over myself. Senior Bai, please enjoy your meal. Bayani was a little confused. What did this mean? Was this equivalent to treating her to a meal? Bayani took out her phone again and quickly dialed. The waiter watched quietly from the side. I'm sorry, the number you dialed is currently unavailable. I'm sorry, the number you dialed is currently unavailable. Just as Bayani was about to dial for the 5th time, the waiter said, Madam Bai, please wait a moment. What? Bayani was in a bad mood and was a little flustered. There's a second note here. Mr. Bai Xiaowen said that if you're not satisfied after reading the first note, the second note is to be given to you. The waiter handed over another note. Bayani stared at the waiter suspiciously. She took the note and opened it. She was stunned. After a while, Bayani muttered, so he knows everything? Just as the waiter was about to leave, Bayani suddenly stopped him. Wait. Bayani stared at the waiter's pale face and dark circles. You're not a waiter in this restaurant, right? Who are you? The waiter twisted his bow tie and grinned, revealing 2 iconic fangs. Vampire? Bayani instinctively took a step back. Living in the spiritual era, even ordinary people were familiar with vampires, werewolves, demons, and other creatures. The vampire waiter chuckled. Don't be afraid, beautiful. My mission is complete. Damn it, learning Chinese is really difficult. Bayani watched as the vampire waiter tore off his uniform and bow tie. With extraordinary agility, he slipped out of the restaurant and disappeared out the door. In the KTV, Bai Xiaowen had a row of young fangirls sitting on his left and right sides. At this time, one of the girls was singing a love song to Bai Xiaowen affectionately. From time to time, there would be a burst of cheers. Sister Zheng's phone was in her bag. She wanted to check the time, so she took Bai Xiaowen's phone. "Hey, you have so many missed calls. Who's this Bayani? Why is she looking for you?" Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and smiled. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't tell me you and her." Sister Zheng showed a suspicious expression. Bai Xiaowen sweated and hurriedly said, "Sister Zheng, don't misunderstand. I'm not interested in girls who are too good at acting and scheming. She won't tolerate such girls." "Oh." Sister Zheng made an "oh" sound. After the fangirl finished singing, Bai Xiaowen led the applause. Then he excused himself and got up to go to the bathroom. Outside the KTV room, Bai Xiaowen saw Kitz, the vampire who had pretended to be a waiter in the restaurant and delivered the note. After hearing Kitz's description, Bai Xiaowen frowned slightly. "Boss, what's wrong?" "Nothing. At first, I thought this woman was very scheming. But after listening to your description, her reaction wasn't what I expected. Especially when she dialed 5 or 6 times in a row. This kind of action doesn't seem like a scheming woman. Could it be that she only approached me for money and wasn't instructed by anyone else?" Kitz grinned. "Boss, are you planning to do it?" Chapter 388. What Bai Xiaowen didn't know was that Bayani's near collision with him wasn't a scam, but a coincidence. Because it was a coincidence, Bayani's panicked expression when she fell couldn't be faked, which was why Bai Xiaowen didn't see the problem on the spot. And the faked injury was Bayani's improvisation after seeing that the driver was Bai Xiaowen. Last night's accident could be said to be real but fake, which left Bai Xiaowen with the impression that she was very scheming. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen guessed that Bayani might be used by his enemy. After all, although the Porto Guild didn't seem to have any reaction and everything was calm, Bai Xiaowen couldn't let his guard down. He still had to go to the treasure space of the Dead Soul Lake to explore, so he didn't want to spend extra energy to find out Bayani's true colors. That night, the gathering with the fans ended successfully. Sister Zheng rented dozens of cars to send the fans safely back to their respective homes. As for the cost of renting the cars, it was certainly not worth mentioning to Bai Xiaowen. After signing the contract with the virtual battle company, Bai Xiaowen made 10 bottles of perfect-grade potions and handed them to the Super God Potion Shop for subsequent marketing and sales. Under the signboard of Bai Xiaowen, the genius potion master, the Super God Potion Shop's sales were also steadily increasing. It could be said that the shop had a firm foothold in the malicious competition of the giant God Potion Shop. After learning that Bayani had a bad start, Fu Hong, who had always been calm, smashed the glass in his hand in anger. After a brief conversation with Fu Qiu, Fu Hong thought that it was time to have a good talk with Zhao Yuding. Of course, Bai Xiaowen didn't know about Fu Hong's little tricks. He gathered the school team members and announced the news that the Dead Soul Lake was about to open. Then, as before, he organized the team members to enter the psionic training ground to hone their skills and combat proficiency. It was worth mentioning that Xiang Hui had been promoted to Elite Level 4 through hard work, completing the leap from a beginner to an intermediate awakened. His strength had improved significantly. Although Bai Xiaowen's sister, Bai Xiaowen, was only in her 3rd year of middle school, her total attributes had exceeded 10 points with the help of the Grade A enhanced diet and perfect training facilities. She was even stronger than Bai Xiaowen when he was in his 3rd year of high school. If this continued, little June would have a chance to reach the threshold of 20 points in her 3rd year of high school. In fact, with Bai Xiaowen's perfect grade strengthening potion, it was already possible for Xiao Jun to consume it, allowing her to reach a total of 20 points in her 1st year of high school. However, it was not a wise decision to let Xiao Jun enter the spiritual realm in advance to accept the Awakened Profession Change test. When the Awakened entered the spiritual realm, it was not only a test of strength, but also of intelligence and common sense. This was especially true for the class change test, which was related to the potential template of the entire awakened stage. Generally speaking, it was safer to accept the spiritual realm's class advancement test after finishing high school and reaching the standard of general knowledge in all the necessary combat specialties. As for Bai Xiaowen and Xiao Jun teaming up to take the class advancement test, that wouldn't do. It wasn't that they couldn't team up. It was just that Bai Xiaowen was now a level 5 hero. He was too strong and could no longer bring Xiao Jun through the test. If the two of them were to form a team, the difficulty of the test would be raised to a level that would leave one speechless. But that was secondary. If Xiao Jun could not even play 1% of her role in the test, the laws of the spiritual realm would not allow Xiao Jun to pass. Also, the income from the virtual shop over the past few days had been deposited with Li Beihai. Li Beihai had traded it to Bai Xiaowen. The total was close to 80,000 points of spirit energy. Judging from the shipping receipts, Zhang Bo had been quite diligent. The shipments were very punctual every day. Bai Xiaowen took out another batch of stock from the territory's warehouse and deposited it with Li Beihai. Then, he continued to be a hands-off shopkeeper. However, when he was taking out the goods, Bai Xiaowen received some information about the rules of the spiritual realm on the permanent fief order. The manager of your territory, Viscount Cecilia, the city lord of Baishur City, has ordered the reclamation of wastelands and the addition of 9 new farmlands. For this government order, food X300 and gold coins X240 were consumed. The manager of your territory, Viscount Cecilia, the city lord of Baishur City, has ordered the upgrading of city walls and the addition of 8 new arrow towers. For this government order, food X200, gold coins X400, wood X800, stone X1000, and iron X100 were consumed. The manager of your territory, Viscount Cecilia, the city lord of Baishur City, has led troops to clean up the ruins of Leia Village. Gold coins X102, wood X65, stone X166, and iron X95 were obtained. For this expedition, no one died. Food X300 and gold coins X300 were consumed. The manager of your territory, Viscount Cecilia, the city lord of Baishur City, has led troops to clean up the ruins of Drogo Castle. Gold coins X1084, wood X301, and iron X106 were obtained. For this expedition, 3 longbowmen died. Food X400 and gold coins X430 were consumed. The manager of your territory, Bai Xiaowen, looked at the accumulated information on the fief order and could not help but be pleasantly surprised. Leia Village and Drogo Castle were territories that belonged to Bai Xiaowen's fief order, but they were already occupied by wandering zombies. As a result, after Cecilia stabilized the defense of Baishur City, she decisively attacked. From near to far, she cleaned up several zombie encampments. Not only did she bring back a lot of supplies, she also expanded Baishur City's control area. The newly reclaimed wasteland could be used to increase food. Moreover, as a former lord, Cecilia was not only good at war, but also had experience in how to develop a territory. Things like reclaiming wastelands and building a city were handled in an orderly manner. From the lord's control panel, Bai Xiaowen could see that the amount of gold coins, food, wood, stone, and other resources in the territory were steadily increasing. Other than the lack of progress in trade due to the lack of progress, other data, including prosperity and livability, had also increased. I originally thought that I needed to worry about the development of the territory. But now it seems that I only need to be responsible for shouting 666. Bai Xiaowen sincerely felt that he was lucky. If he did not have the support of the female lord, Cecilia, even if he obtained this permanent fief, how much could he do? The income would inevitably be greatly reduced, and the territory would become more and more deserted. Adding up the psionic points earned by the virtual store during this period, Bai Xiaowen's total psionic points exceeded 200,000. As the saying goes, one's heart does not panic with money in hand. Bai Xiaowen's heart was now very stable. He was no longer distracted. While he was training, he used his energy to search for information about the Dead Soul Lake and make sufficient preparations. Finally, the opening date of the Dead Soul Lake arrived. On this day, many of the awakened students of Jinghai University had woken up early in the morning. Numerous off-road vehicles had formed a motorcade and were heading towards the Dead Soul Lake in a grandiose manner. The Dead Soul Lake was located in the Jianhai district, 150 kilometers away from Jinghai base city. They did not encounter any danger along the way, only a few scattered mutant beasts. When they saw the convoy, they did not take the initiative to attack. For example, the last rat tide did not appear. According to Yan Xiaoxin, as New Year's Day approached, the country began to clean up the main roads between the base cities again. That was why it was so peaceful. Bai Xiaowen also heard about this. Clearing the main roads between the base cities was allocated by the country and given to the various A-level guilds to organize elite awakened personnel to complete the task in sections. For example, the Giant Gods Guild in Jinghai base city was responsible for clearing the main roads from Jinghai City to Jiangnan City in Jinling City. Small guilds like the Super Gods could only apply to clear the less dangerous auxiliary roads near the base cities. The clearing of roads by the guilds was naturally not free. The country would allocate funds to clearly mark the price of each road section. After the guilds completed the clearing and received the inspection, the corresponding funds, in the form of psionic points, would be traded to the person in charge of the corresponding guild. The funds for clearing the roads came from various sources, mainly from the freight and taxes of various virtual markets. This was also a relatively healthy operating model formed after 100 years of development. Therefore, the large and small guilds were very active in clearing the roads every season and every year. The bidding competition for each road section was also very fierce. Of course, it was basically impossible for small guilds to bid for important roads because the Awakened Association also looked at the strength of the bidding guilds. It was not up to whoever wanted less psionic points. Without monsters blocking the road, the off-road convoy drove for 3 hours and arrived at the area where the Dead Soul Lake was located, the Upside Down Mountain. The Upside Down Mountain could be considered a famous place. Perhaps due to the excessive energy in this mountain area, the sky was covered with dark clouds all year round. It was quite cold and desolate. After entering the mountain area, the north and south points of the compass would be completely opposite. East, west, north, and south would be reversed. This was also the origin of the name of the Upside Down Mountain. Experienced awakened ones would deliberately move in the opposite direction of the compass. This way, they would be able to travel unhindered. This is the Dead Soul Lake of the Upside Down Mountain, Yan Xiaoxin said. The convoy stopped at the periphery of the Upside Down Mountain. Because the mountain area was too rugged, even off-road vehicles could not drive in. The group followed Yan Xiaoxin and the other teachers and trekked all the way to the central area of the Upside Down Mountain, the Dead Soul Lake. The area of the Dead Soul Lake was not large. It looked more like a pool, about the size of 2 football fields. The pool was light green, with a thin layer of mist rising from its surface. The lake water is so cold. Li Shi's hand reached into the lake water and then quickly retracted. Bai Xiaowen had read the information about the Dead Soul Lake and said, "Actually, the temperature of the Dead Soul Lake is not low. The reason why it is cold is because the lake water has been contaminated by the resentment of the dead souls. This cold feeling directly affects the mind and not the nerves. It is more like an illusion." Someone had experimented with the Dead Soul Lake's water. The thermometer showed that the temperature was normal. It was even higher than normal lake water. Actually, the pool of water in front of them was not the real space of the treasure land. The treasure land of the Dead Soul Lake was an independent space. Just like the Rift Valley of the Broken Back Mountain, there was only a cracked door that connected to Earth. The spatial door here was at the bottom of the lake. Several teams from other universities in the Jianhai division had already arrived. A few teams immediately came over to communicate with the team from Jinghai University. "Your Jinghai University has a powerful person this time. Even Qi Ruifeng is no match for him. This time, Jinghai University is finally going to make a comeback in the CUAA League." Xuhua University's team leader, Wang Jin, sighed and said, unlike us, we didn't qualify for the national competition. The teams from Tongjiang University and Suan University also sighed. No one showed any hostility to Bai Xiaowen. Everyone knew that Bai Xiaowen's strength was not on the same level as everyone else. Even Qi Ruifeng was no match for him. The throne of the Jianhai division had already changed hands. Moreover, the CUAA League's qualifiers had already passed. There was no need to compete. Now that they were going to explore the Dead Soul Lake, it was not wrong to greet them in advance and form good karma. Even the team from Jinling University came over, but Jiang Yi was not there. It was not that Jiang Yi did not want to participate in the exploration of the Dead Soul Lake. He had already lost the qualifiers, so there was no point in hiding his strength. It was just that Jiang Yi felt embarrassed, so he simply stayed in his car. It was worth mentioning that among the team from Jinling University, Bai Xiaowen also saw an acquaintance, Qiao Qi, who was rumored to have a mysterious background. Bai Xiaowen heard that last time, Fu Hong brought Qiao Qi to the super godly potion shop to cause trouble. After being scolded by Bai Xiaowen, Qiao Qi did not retaliate. Instead, he obediently participated in the auction and spent a high price to buy a bottle of perfect strengthening potion that he wanted. This time, the two met again. Qiao Qi looked at Bai Xiaowen with a strange gaze, but there was a hint of reconciliation in his words. Hey, I bought the strengthening potion you made. It's not bad, my agility increased by 4 points. Bai Xiaowen smiled and nodded. Congratulations. Qiao Qi scratched his colorful hair. Well, actually, last time, I didn't do it on purpose. You're very capable. Well, my sister scolded me and said that I can't offend capable people. She told me to apologize to you. My sister also told me to stay away from Fu Hong. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, then I really have to thank your sister. There's no need to apologize. There's no need to mention the past. Qiao Qi must have been instigated by Fu Hong to cause trouble at the super godly potion shop last time. In the end, the root of this matter was still Fu Hong. It was caused by the feud between the Giant Gods Guild and the Super Gods Guild. Qiao Qi was willing to reconcile, so Bai Xiaowen naturally had to give him face. After all, Qiao Qi should have a strong force behind him. One more friend meant one more path. Even if they could not be friends, they should try not to become enemies because of personal feelings. The team from Jiangnan University did not participate in the exchange. The entire team, from Qi Ruifeng to below, seemed to be holding back. Of course, Bai Xiaowen did not put on any airs. He chatted with the team leaders of the other universities in a normal manner. Chapter 389. Compared to the last Great Rift Valley, the treasured space in the Dead Soul Lake had more good things and higher quality items. Therefore, for the opening of the Dead Soul Lake, not only did the teams from the universities in the Jianhai region come, but the universities from the surrounding regions also came. After Yan Xiaoxin talked with several Jianhai University teachers, she quietly came to Bai Xiaowen's side. Among the university students participating in the Dead Soul Lake exploration, there are several powerful awakened students. Stronger than Qi Ruifeng? Bai Xiaowen asked. He didn't think so. Yan Xiaoxin shook her head and said, of course Qi Ruifeng is strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to lead Jiangnan University to 4th place last year. However, the powerful guys I mentioned are much weaker than Qi Ruifeng. After a pause, Yan Xiaoxin pointed to a young man in white sportswear and said, for example, Duan Mucheng is the captain of Wannan University. Last year, Wannan University ranked 10th in the national competition. Yan Xiaoxin pointed to another short and stout boy and said, also, that short fatty isn't simple either. He's called Bao Yiming, the captain of Shandong University. Last time, we were eliminated by Shandong University and left the national competition in the first round, so I have a deep impression of this fat guy. He must be stronger now. Yan Xiaoxin pointed to several people and described their strengths one by one. Among these people, the more powerful ones, such as Duan Cheng and Bao Yiming, were all heroes. In terms of individual strength, they weren't inferior to Qi Ruifeng. Even the slightly weaker ones, such as Wang Jin and Geng Chen, were all elite level 6 awakened. They had good equipment and were quite strong. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile, "Teacher Yan, you're so serious. I thought there was someone more powerful than Qi Ruifeng hidden among these people. Don't be careless. These people are proud and arrogant. They haven't fought with you before. They won't be convinced by a freshman like you." Yan Xiaoxin whispered, "You shouldn't be afraid of one-on-one, but if 2 or 3 of them join forces to deal with you in the Dead Soul Lake, it will be troublesome. It's not like I don't have teammates around me. With Shui here, even if a few more came, they would just be delivering food to us." Bai Xiaowen was confident in Li Shi's damage output. With his crowd control and Li Shi's damage output, they could defeat 2 level 7 bosses at the same time. Even if an awakened was harder to deal with than a boss of the same level, there was still a huge difference in strength between an intermediate awakened and an advanced boss. Moreover, in the early stage of the Dead Soul Lake, it wasn't easy to join hands. Entering the Treasure Land space would cause a spatial dislocation effect. Even if they entered at the same time, they would be assigned to different areas. Moreover, ordinary communication tools such as mobile phones could not be used in the treasure space, which further increased the difficulty of meeting. However, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi were permanent teammates, so they could sense each other's general location. This made it easier for the 2 of them to meet up. As long as their luck wasn't too bad, the 2 of them would be able to meet up before the others. The dislocation effect of the spatial portal was actually beneficial to Bai Xiaowen. "It's good that you're confident." Yan Xiaoxin didn't say much. She didn't want to put too much pressure on Bai Xiaowen. She only hoped that Bai Xiaowen could complete the mission objective and bring her the Spirit Hydra's eyeball. Now that the spatial portal could accommodate level 1 to level 3 awakened, Chen Guowei went in first. Bai Xiaowen gathered the other awakened students from Jinghai University to discuss tactics. He divided the map into 7 areas of different sizes and said, "After entering the Treasure Land space, determine which area you are in as soon as possible. We'll designate a meeting point for each of the 7 areas in advance. We'll use the area that's most worth exploring as the meeting point. After you've confirmed your location, hurry to the corresponding meeting point as soon as possible. The more people, the stronger." Bai Xiaowen quickly circled the corresponding meeting point on the map. "What if I'm the only one in a certain area?" a student asked. "Good question. That's why we need to set a maximum waiting time." Bai Xiaowen thought for a moment and said, "The maximum waiting time will be 1 day. If no one shows up after 1 day at the meeting point, then we'll go to the central area of the Treasure Land space. Of course, if you feel that the central area is dangerous and want to explore the peripheral areas, you're free to do so. I'm only suggesting the meeting point. It's not mandatory." The Jinghai University students nodded. At night, Bai Xiaowen lay in the back seat of his off-road vehicle. He seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, but in reality, he was meditating. Bai Xiaowen never stopped meditating. His meditation ability had reached level 5 a long time ago and was on its way to level 6. With the bonus of the title of Strongest Scholar, meditation actually enjoyed the effect of advancing to level 6. After the skeleton sorcerer devoured the soul of Zhu Ji, the Yellow Turban Army's great doctor, it evolved into a skeletal demon arcane master. Bai Xiaowen activated his telepathy ability and checked the memory fragments of the skeletal demon arcane master. He was pleasantly surprised to find that the combat ability the skeletal demon arcane master had inherited from Zhu Ji not only gave him level 6 meditation ability, but also level 5 lightning spell mastery. Bai Xiaowen shared his telepathy with the skeletal demon arcane master to quickly learn the level 6 meditation ability. As for lightning spell mastery, it was also a useful specialty. With every level, it could grant the caster a 5% increase in lightning spell damage. The level 5 lightning spell damage bonus was as high as 25%. Of course, the skeletal demon arcane master didn't enjoy the 25% lightning spell damage bonus. It required Bai Xiaowen to control it. In essence, the damage bonus was determined by the level of Bai Xiaowen's lightning spell. This was one of the reasons why summoned creatures were weaker than monsters/awakened of the same level and template. Unless the summoner had the corresponding combat ability and could control the summoned creatures to exert extraordinary combat power, the only way was to use Explosive Soldier A. Bai Xiaowen planned to start learning the advanced specialty of lightning spells after reaching level 6 in his advanced meditation. Of course, it would take a lot of time. Bai Xiaowen had 0 lightning spells to begin with, so it would be very difficult for him to directly absorb the memory fragments of the level 5 lightning spell. But if he could learn it, it would be very useful. It could increase the damage of the skeletal demon arcane master and replenish the magic damage of Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures. At dawn, the sound of splashing water could be heard. The awakened one in charge of scouting the treasure trove floated to the surface with an oxygen tank on his back and sent the corresponding signal. Chapter 390. Yes, yes. The intermediate hunters from major universities waiting by the lake jumped into the lake one after another. What needed to be explained was that Awakened had a psionic force field to begin with. By creating a psionic force field underwater, there was enough oxygen for them to breathe for a short period of time. Typically, a mid-level Awakened could hold their breath for about 10 minutes. Therefore, these Awakened students directly jumped into the lake and swam to the bottom of the lake in 2 or 3 minutes. They did not need to bring any additional diving equipment to enter the portal of the treasure space. The hunter who was responsible for the exploration just now needed to stay underwater for a long time to observe the opening of the space portal. That's why he had to carry an oxygen tank. After Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi entered the water and swam, they felt that the water of the Lake of the Dead Souls was indeed bone-chilling. This kind of coldness directly affected the spirit. If it were an ordinary person, they would not be able to withstand it. Only the awakened ones, whose physiques were far stronger than ordinary people, could withstand this bone-chilling qi. The two of them swam for more than a minute before they reached the bottom of the lake. They saw a dim light curtain. Apparently, this was the entrance to the Dead Soul Lake. Li Shi gently shook Bai Xiaowen's hand and made a gesture of encouragement. Bai Xiaowen smiled and nodded. The two of them entered the light screen one after the other. A slight feeling of weightlessness came over him. Bai Xiaowen had entered the light curtain upside down with his head down and feet up. However, after entering the light curtain, his body did not move, but it felt like he had returned to his normal standing position with his head up and feet up. This feeling was very strange. It was as if the entire world had been flipped upside down. The sky had become the earth, and the earth had become the sky. When the feeling of weightlessness disappeared, the scenery in front of him finally froze. Oh my God! Am I in hell or the underworld? The sky above Bai Xiaowen's head was dark, completely covered by the dark green clouds in the shape of a whirlpool. The ground beneath his feet was filled with cracks. The small cracks were only as wide as a finger, while some were more than 10 meters wide. They could already be called canyons. The land was dark brown in color, and wisps of white mist would occasionally surge out from the cracks in the ground. Bai Xiaowen knew that this white fog was called ghost fog. It was different from the normal fog on Earth. It was formed by yin qi and resentment, and it was bone-chilling. Awakened ones would automatically receive an immediate negative status within the ghost fog area. Yin energy would surround them, and their stamina recovery speed, HP recovery speed, and MP recovery speed would be greatly reduced, close to a stagnant state. In other words, the awakened one's ability to continue fighting in the ghost fog would be greatly reduced. However, in the treasured space of the Dead Soul Lake, the ghost fog was unavoidable. In the peripheral areas, the ghost fog area was not considered large. However, the deeper they went, which was the core area of the Dead Soul Lake, the thicker the ghost fog became. The most central area was almost completely covered by ghost fog. More importantly, many of the special treasures in the Dead Soul Lake were produced in the ghost fog area. For example, Bai Xiaowen's target, the Phantom Hydra, was a monster entrenched in the ghost fog area in the depths of the Dead Soul Lake. Of course, the negative status of yin energy in the ghost fog area could also be avoided. This was the valuable experience of the awakened who had explored the treasured space. To move normally in the ghost fog area, you must collect a set of undead camouflage. Bai Xiaowen recalled the information he had prepared. Undead camouflage requires the fusion of nether grass and drowned bones. The more nether grass and drowned bones collected, and the higher the quality, the more perfect the undead camouflage will be. Bai Xiaowen looked at his starting position on the map. There are mountains on the left, and plains on the right. There is a huge crack across the east and west. Bai Xiaowen quickly confirmed that he was at the southernmost part of the treasured space of the Dead Soul Lake. To the west was the Ghost Spirit Mountain, and to the east was the ominous plains. As for the huge crack in front of him that blocked the way, it was called the Netherworld Fissure. This was the southernmost area of the 7 meeting areas that Bai Xiaowen had delineated. The meeting point in the southernmost area was called Shadow Wind Mound, and it was located in the Netherworld Fissure. Bai Xiaowen sensed Li Shi's position through the team's communication. He could only roughly judge that Li Shi was in the northeast direction, and the distance seemed to be a little far. Let's go to the meeting point at Shadow Wind Mound first and wait for a while. Shadow Wind Mound itself is a well-known relic in the treasured space of the Dead Soul Lake. Bai Xiaowen summoned the Wrath Claw, and the man and the wolf walked along a ramp into the Netherworld Fissure. The white fog surrounded them, and Bai Xiaowen shivered slightly. The Wrath Claw also snorted. The white ghost fog seemed to be absorbing the heat emitted from their bodies. Bai Xiaowen checked his personal menu, and there was indeed an additional negative status, lingering yin energy. The effect was exactly the same as what was recorded in the information. The ghost fog here was thinner, and it did not affect his vision much. In Bai Xiaowen's line of sight, he could already see the shadow of a hunchbacked figure getting up and walking towards him with unsteady steps. Drowned Zombie, Level 5, Race, Undead/Corpse Demon, Attributes, Strength 24, Agility 11, Vitality 22, Spirit 5 Skill 1, Ominous Breath, Passive, the drowned zombie's breath will bring misfortune. As the battle drags on, the number of layers of ominous breath will stack. Each layer of ominous breath will cause all attributes to drop by 1 temporarily. Maximum of 10 layers. The negative effect will disappear after 10 seconds of leaving the battle. Skill 2, Slow, Passive, all damage received by the drowned zombie is reduced by 25%. The drowned zombie's basic attack speed is reduced by 25%. This kind of monster is a bit difficult to deal with. It's especially unfriendly to melee fighters. Bai Xiaowen deactivated Insight. The passive skill, Slow, was a double-edged sword. While it reduced the damage received, it also reduced the user's damage output. However, the first passive skill of the drowned zombie was a bit shameless. The longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for the awakened. If 10 layers of ominous breath were stacked, all attributes would drop by 10 points. It was important to note that the drowned zombie did not appear alone. In Bai Xiaowen's vision, there were 3 of them. He did not know if the ominous breath of the 3 zombies was calculated as one, or if it was calculated separately. If it was calculated separately, then it would be a bit scary. If the 3 zombies' passive skills were stacked up to 10 layers, that would be 30 layers of ominous breath. No matter how powerful the awakened was, if all attributes were reduced by 30 points, they would not be able to do anything. Bai Xiaowen raised his hand and summoned the 2 skeletal swordsmen and the undead demon arcane master. At the same time, he took out the desert eagle. He had to end the battle as soon as possible. Bang! A gunshot rang out. The first bullet of the desert eagle drilled into the forehead of one of the drowned zombies. The scorching hot bullet pierced through the drowned zombie's skull. 100% critical hit rate. Headshot. Vital hit. Of course, the first bullet also had the penetrative effect of ignoring the target's defense. However, the bullet hit the forehead of the drowned zombie and ignored the target's armor. The drowned zombie fell to the ground with a thud. Bai Xiaowen had insta-killed it. The two skeletal swordsmen raised their shields and blocked the remaining two drowned zombies. The Wrath Claw circled behind the drowned zombies and slashed at them with its claws. The two drowned zombies were normal level 6 monsters. Even though they had a 25% damage reduction, they could not withstand the violent attacks of Bai Xiaowen, the Wrath Claw, and the Undead Demon Arcane Master. They quickly fell to the ground after 10 seconds. Bai Xiaowen looked at the number of layers of ominous breath on the Wrath Claw. In just a dozen seconds, it had stacked up to 3 layers. I remember that in the first second after we entered the battle, Wrath Claw and the 2 skeleton sword shield bearers were stacked with 2 layers of ominous auras. It should be 1 layer each from the 2 drowned zombies. After that, we focused fire on one of the drowned zombies and stalled the other one for 10 seconds before stacking another layer of ominous breath. Bai Xiaowen summarized the ominous breath stacking mechanism of the drowned zombies. If it was a drowned zombie, the first layer of ominous breath would be stacked immediately after the battle. Then, it would be stacked with an additional layer of ominous breath every 10 seconds. The 3 layers of ominous breath stacked on the Wrath Claw were a negative effect. This meant that the maximum number of ominous breath stacking was 10. No matter how many drowned zombies they faced, the stack would not exceed 10. However, the more drowned zombies there were, the faster the stack would be. Bai Xiaowen made up his mind. He walked up to the 3 drowned zombies and started looting their loot. After the drowned zombies died, their bodies quickly turned into gray mist and disappeared into the air. At the place where they died, only a few black bones were left. When Bai Xiaowen's fingers touched these bones, he received a notification. This was one of the materials needed for undead camouflage, drowned bones, low. Bai Xiaowen obtained a total of 3 bones. There was an additional notification behind the drowned bones. This special material was formed by the yin energy of the Dead Soul Lake. It could only be formed in the treasure land of the Dead Soul Lake. If it left the treasure land, it would quickly dissipate. These 3 drowned zombies did not drop any treasure chests. They only left behind 3 drowned bones. However, Bai Xiaowen was not discouraged. This was the normal drop rate. If the drop rate of treasure chests of normal monsters was so high, psionic points and psionic items would not be so rare. After walking a few hundred meters into the depths of the nether crevice, Bai Xiaowen suddenly stopped. He raised his Desert Eagle and fired a shot to his left. The sound of heavy breathing was heard. A pair of blood-red eyes appeared in the mist. Then, there was the sound of a heavy palm hitting the ground. In the mist, a 3-meter-long crocodile pounced. It had been hiding for a long time. However, it did not escape Bai Xiaowen's mental scan. The Wrath Claw, which was also huge, also pounced. After dodging the crocodile's first attack, it circled to the side and used its Ren skill. It left a few claw marks on the crocodile's skin. However, it did not bleed. Dead Swamp Crocodile, Elite Level 6, Race, Wild Beast/Terrestrial Beast, Attributes, Strength 37, Agility 22, Vitality 30, Spirit 14, Skill 1, Thick Skin. The armor of the Dead Swamp Crocodile is increased by 30%. Skill 2, Ambush. The Dead Swamp Crocodile can blend in well with its surroundings, reducing the probability of being discovered. If it initiates an attack without being discovered, it will have a shock test and cause additional damage. Skill 3, Hunt. The Dead Swamp Crocodile pounces on the opponent and bites the target. The target must first pass a strength check. Otherwise, the target will not be able to escape and will continue to lose HP. The target must also pass a vitality check. Otherwise, the target will be crippled. There are still living creatures in the treasured space of the Dead Soul Lake. The strongest skill of the Dead Swamp Crocodile was undoubtedly its 3rd hunt skill. It could be said that it was its main skill. Of course, the ambush skill was also very troublesome for the awakened ones who lacked detection skills or had lower priority. However, it was not a problem for Bai Xiaowen. With the Wrath Claw blocking the normal attacks of the dead swamp crocodile, the necromancer's Thunder Strike skill landed on the crocodile, leaving green smoke on the body of the crocodile. Magic damage wasn't reduced by armor. Bai Xiaowen, on the other hand, activated rapid fire mode. His shooting speed was doubled. Bullets poured out one after another. At this time, the penetration effect showed its power. Every 3 bullets, the 4th bullet would definitely ignore the armor. The dead swamp crocodile could only take the full damage. Roar! The dead swamp crocodile's 4 thick and powerful claws suddenly stomped. It opened its mouth full of sharp teeth and bit towards the Wrath Claw. Bai Xiaowen instantly received a notification. This was the dead swamp crocodile's hunt skill. Crack! A thunder strike fell from the sky. After the skeleton mage became an undead demon arcane master, Bai Xiaowen's lightning throw became lightning strike. His attack speed became much faster, and his lightning energy no longer had to travel through the air. Bai Xiaowen was much more proficient in using it to interrupt skills, and he didn't have to calculate much in advance. If it was a physical interruption skill, such as the skeleton swordsman's shield bash, the dead swamp crocodile could still take it. However, the skill ignored its armor. The interruption effect immediately took effect. The dead swamp crocodile's body was paralyzed and its forward momentum was also suddenly stopped. The Wrath Claw's agility was originally much higher than the dead swamp crocodile. With this interruption skill, it easily dodged the dead swamp crocodile's attack and used its bite skill. Under Bai Xiaowen's precise control, the Wrath Claw's attack landed on the dead swamp crocodile's injured area. With a rip, the Wrath Claw tore off a large piece of flesh from the dead swamp crocodile's body. This attack not only caused a critical hit, but also had a moderate bleeding effect. The dead swamp crocodile rolled around in pain, almost going crazy. However, no matter how much it struggled, as a level 6 elite, it was still not Bai Xiaowen's opponent. Its remaining HP was quickly emptied and it fell to the ground with a plop. On top of the dead swamp crocodile's corpse, a silver treasure chest appeared. Although a treasure chest appeared, Bai Xiaowen's focus was not on the treasure chest. Chapter 391. Bai Xiaowen used his dagger to cut open the crocodile's skin. He checked the area around the heart but did not find any treasure meat. He threw the whole crocodile's corpse into his inventory. As a hero, Bai Xiaowen had a large inventory space. He was also bound to the team's shared inventory space. Bai Xiaowen found specks of phosphorescence in the direction where the crocodile had crawled out. He was overjoyed. He carefully walked over and brushed aside a cluster of unknown dark green plants. He saw a cluster of gray grass flickering with phosphorescence. This was the nether grass. To create the undead camouflage, one needed the drowned bones and nether grass. Of course, this cluster alone was not enough. Bai Xiaowen carefully picked the nether grass. He felt a little short of breath. After becoming an awakened, he had a rare feeling of fatigue. It was like continuously using the grass-style ancient martial arts to create flames. As a summoner, Bai Xiaowen's stamina consumption was relatively low. He knew that the ghost fog was filled with negative environmental effects, so he was very careful to conserve his stamina. He had been using the desert eagle to attack from afar. This way, he would consume the least stamina. However, low consumption did not mean no consumption. The control and calculation of his mental power would also consume a certain amount of stamina. More importantly, the Wrath Claw was also affected by the lingering yin energy. It stuck out its tongue and panted like a dog in summer. Bai Xiaowen glanced at the skeleton swordsman and the undead demon arcane master. He was surprised to find that these undead creatures did not have any lingering yin energy around them. He silently checked the undead demon arcane master's mental power recovery speed. He found that compared to normal, its recovery speed had increased. This is really the home ground of undead and demons. Bai Xiaowen sighed. He put away the Wrath Claw and summoned the vampire kits and the shadow assassin as the main force. "Boss, is this the Dead Soul Lake you were talking about?" As a sentient Kits, he made his presence known as soon as he appeared. He took a deep breath and said, as expected of a treasure land. It feels good. The air is fresh. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, because you're an undead creature, that's why you feel comfortable. This place is very unfriendly to life forms, let's not talk too much. Let's keep going. Kits, you walk in front. All right. With the ability to morph into a bat, Kit's life-saving abilities were quite strong, and he was the most suitable candidate to scout ahead. Along the way, Bai Xiaowen killed a few more drowned zombies and picked 2 clumps of nether grass. I think it's about time. Bai Xiaowen now had 8 black drowned bones and 3 tufts of nether grass. He tried to fuse these special items together. After a slight flash of light, an item that looked like a tattered straw raincoat appeared in front of Bai Xiaowen. As soon as Bai Xiaowen touched it, he received a notification: frowny face, incomplete undead disguise, low-level disguises you as an undead creature. Due to the limited materials, this item is severely damaged, which will seriously affect the camouflage effect. Bai Xiaowen tried to drape this tattered straw raincoat over his body, and felt a slightly cold sensation. However, when the white mist surged and flowed through the straw raincoat, Bai Xiaowen clearly felt that the feeling of constantly absorbing heat from his body had somewhat disappeared. It really is effective. The lingering effects of the yin energy have weakened. However, the negative effects are still there. Perhaps it's because the undead disguise is an incomplete version. Bai Xiaowen draped the incomplete undead disguise on and walked forward. Ahead of him was a low-lying swamp, and a wide lotus-like object floated on the surface of the swamp. The vampire Kit stepped on the first lotus leaf, and said, "Boss, this lotus leaf isn't bad. It's very buoyant." As he spoke, Kit's even jumped a couple of times. "Hey, don't jump!" Bai Xiaowen hurriedly tried to stop him, but it was too late. 2 wisps of faint gray smoke emerged from the swamp below the lotus leaf, and then condensed into 2 humanoid figures with no facial features. They scratched at Kits with their sharp nails. Kits hurriedly retreated in fright. "Whoa, what are these things?" "These are undead soul creatures, ghosts. They usually hibernate beneath the giant lotus leaf," Bai Xiaowen explained. Kit's jumping just now was like dancing on a ghost's grave. Any ghost wouldn't be able to stand it. Otherwise, with his undead body, he wouldn't have aroused the ghost's vigilance. Only a life form like Bai Xiaowen would. Bai Xiaowen used insight on the 2 ghosts. Ghosts and shadow assassins were of the same race. They had the racial passive ability of reducing physical damage by 50%, but of course, the price was that they received 50% more magic damage. Of these 2 ghosts, one was of the normal template, while the other was of the elite template. The 2 monsters shared a second skill called Rend, which used their nails to scratch the enemy and cause physical damage, as well as a bleeding effect. Apart from these 2 skills, the elite ghost also had an additional active skill, Ghost Shriek. This was a crowd control skill that could cause nearby enemies to flee in all directions. Seeing the Ghost Shriek skill, Bai Xiaowen knew that he had to end the battle quickly. This was a muddy swamp. If this crowd control skill caused them to run around randomly, it would be very dangerous to fall into the swamp itself, not to mention that it would attract even more slumbering ghosts. Bai Xiaowen took out a bottle of ale and gulped it down. A warm current flowed through him, dispelling the chill. He could feel that the energy he had lost was quickly recovering. At his command, Kits and the 2 skeletal swordsmen charged forward. The first to attack was still the skeletal fiend Arcane Master. He pointed his bony claws, and a bolt of lightning came crashing down. Not only did it deal a shocking 85 points of magic damage, it also successfully interrupted the elite ghost's first attack. Bai Xiaowen closed in and punched the elite ghost's abdomen with a flaming fist. He then followed up with a series of smooth moves. The 2 skeletal swordsmen followed up with a shield bash, keeping the elite ghost in an unbalanced state. Bai Xiaowen's 2 fingers drew a line of fire in the air as he used Dark Whisk. A line of fire quickly wrapped around the elite ghost, burning it and forcing it to retreat. Pissed. The shadow assassin appeared behind the elite ghost and accurately stabbed it in the back. Of course, the elite ghost's physical damage was reduced by 50%, so the double damage of the stab was negated. However, the elite ghost was suffering from the skeletal fiend Arcane Master's lightning strike and Bai Xiaowen's fire burn. It didn't have much health left. Chapter 392. After the elite spectre was killed, the remaining normal spectre naturally could not cause much trouble and was easily killed. After the two spectres died, there were no corpses. Instead, they turned into black fog and dissipated. Only the silver treasure chest was left. Bai Xiaowen's finger touched the treasure chest, and a notification indicated that the battle's rating was D. The treasure space in the Dead Soul Lake was slightly more difficult than the space in the Rift Valley of Broken Spine Mountain. Most of the monsters, including the boss, were only at level 5 or 6. Only a small number of monsters could reach level 7 by chance. With Bai Xiaowen's current strength as a level 5 hero, the specters he killed were only level 6 elites. It was normal for him to receive a level D rating. A level D rating had a 1/3 chance of not receiving anything. Bai Xiaowen did not have much hope for the spoils of war. He casually opened the treasure chest and chose a silver card. However, a notification from the spiritual world's precepts that followed caused his slightly narrowed eyes to open abruptly. He was pleasantly surprised. You have obtained a special item, Impure Soul Essence. Bai Xiaowen hurriedly checked the item. What he saw was a light gray energy body. Although there was a slight difference in color, its form and name were exactly the same as the impure soul essence obtained from killing the vengeful spirit in the Jiajing dimension. In addition, the blood essence stone of Absalon, slightly damaged, also gave off a slightly hot feeling. Obviously, this soul essence could also be fed to Absalon's blood essence stone to replenish its integrity. Absalon's blood essence stone, as a lord's product, was definitely extraordinary. However, due to Bai Xiaowen's punishment for killing Absalon, the blood essence stone had always been in a damaged state. It was only after killing the vengeful spirit, the white ghost, and the king of black zombie in the Jiajing dimension that it was repaired. Bai Xiaowen was looking forward to seeing the power of the blood essence stone in its complete state. He hurriedly checked the details of the newly obtained impure soul essence. Impure soul essence. This soul essence is entrenched with deep resentment. Only the blood of a Tao Wu can cleanse it. Tao Wu. Bai Xiaowen repeated the name. In the information provided by the previous awakened seniors of Jinghai University, there was no mention of such a creature. Bai Xiaowen analyzed the name and said to himself, let's split the name into two parts. Yen means to have nightmares and be confused. In the ancient times of Huaxia, Yen refers to an alligator, which is also a crocodile. Bai Xiaowen analyzed the name and said to himself, Yen, these two words are very strange together. Could it be a crocodile that is good at mental attacks? In any case, the fact that the unclean essence needed to be cleansed with the blood of Baiyan meant that these spirits might have been killed by Baiyan when they were alive. Bai Xiaowen already had experience doing this kind of cleansing mission. However, in order to repair Absoran's blood essence stone, the more of these essences the better. Bai Xiaowen looked at the huge lotus leaves in the swamp in front of him and revealed a vulgar smile. Then, he gestured to Kits with his lips. Kits, go greet these dormant spirits. Remember to draw them all the way to my side, from far to near. The vampire Kits laughed heartily and walked along the huge lotus leaves step by step. After walking through hundreds of lotus leaves, he arrived at the opposite side of the swamp and began to jump. My friends in the trees, my friends in the water, put down what you're doing and have fun with me. Kits imitated a joke on the internet. He twisted his waist and swayed his hips, and jumped rhythmically 2 or 3 times. Then, he turned back to Bai Xiaowen's direction and jumped onto the second lotus leaf. After 2 more jumps, he jumped onto the third lotus leaf. What was more exciting than dancing at a grave? Dancing at a grave. A large group of spirits quickly gathered behind Kits. After a short search, they quickly found Kits, the culprit who had awakened them from their dormancy. they screamed and rushed over. By the time Kits reached the middle of his jump, the first group of spirits had already caught up to his butt. Kits had no choice but to use his ability to transform into a bat, temporarily causing the spirits to lose their target. He then flew to the next lotus leaf and continued to jump. When the spirits caught up again, he used his ability to transform into a bat. By the time Kits returned to Bai Xiaowen, there were several hundred spirits behind him, forming a densely packed spirit army that charged over. A third of them were elite spirits. Bai Xiaowen had long since been ready. When the spirit army charged over, he took a deep breath and fiercely slapped out the flames in his palm. Roar of the Orochi! A huge wave of flames surged out and covered the space of more than 10 meters in front of him, shrouding all the densely packed specter troops within it. 3 seconds of continuous burning, plus the fact that the spirits were vulnerable to magic damage by an additional 50%, the damage of this Orochi was astonishing. A large number of densely packed -65, -71, -69, and other damage numbers appeared above the spirits' heads. Every spirit had to endure 3 seconds of burning, and there were as many as 3 damage numbers appearing above their heads. After 3 seconds of burning, the several hundred spirits were completely annihilated. Even the elite spirits had less than 20 points of vitality. Of course, they couldn't bear the additional 50% damage of Orochi. Only a few dozen silver treasure chests were left on the ground. The ground was covered in silver light, and the scene could be described as spectacular. Bai Xiaowen's face suddenly became pale. He had used up a lot of his stamina. He took a deep breath and sat down cross-legged, ordering Kits and the skeleton swordsman to pick up the treasure chests. Bai Xiaowen's Kusanagi sword was in a state of devouring infusion. Therefore, the sword's Orochi skill, which required 10,000 psionic points to charge, couldn't be used for the time being. Bai Xiaowen's Orochi skill just now was performed by controlling the flame bloodline and consuming his own stamina. In this environment of lingering yin energy, Bai Xiaowen's stamina couldn't recover effectively, and he immediately felt a heavy sense of fatigue. Kits was different. He had used his bat transformation ability many times, and his stamina was almost at rock bottom. But in this ghost fog area, he only needed to take 2 deep breaths, and his breath returned to normal. This was the advantage of being an undead in a ghost fog area. Their stamina recovery speed didn't decrease, but increased. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen had an incomplete undead camouflage, which slightly suppressed the lingering effects of the lingering yin energy. He took a few breaths, and while he was out of combat mode, he drank a small barrel of ale, and his stamina slowly recovered. The lingering yin energy of the ghost fog area suppressed the natural recovery ability of the awakened ones. For example, the recovery of stamina from ale, the recovery of spirit from rice wine, and the recovery of HP from food such as steamed buns weren't affected by the lingering yin energy. Bai Xiaowen's stamina recovered by a small half, and he habitually checked his harvest. Killing several hundred ghosts at once, including nearly 100 elite ghosts, Bai Xiaowen's harvest of psionic points was quite generous, nearly 70,000. The Black Soul Stone was also eating heartily. Its growth rate soared, and its soul essence soared to 851 points. So cool, so cool. Bai Xiaowen sighed. This swamp area where the ghosts were lurking was originally a very dangerous area. If it were other awakened ones, especially physical attack type ones, it would be very difficult for them to kill elite ghosts so easily. Once caught in a dogfight, the elite ghosts only needed to use the Ghost Shriek skill to make the awakened ones flee in all directions in the dangerous swamp area, luring out more ghosts. Then, one after another, the ghost shrieks would rise and fall. It could be said to be a narrow escape. In the end, the awakened ones would be forced to leave the treasure space of the Dead Soul Lake. However, Bai Xiaowen had Kits, the little monster luring expert with strong survivability, to lure a large number of ghosts to him. He also had Orochi's powerful area of effect skill, which perfectly dealt magic damage to restrain the ghosts. That was how he got the advantage. Unfortunately, all the ghosts in the vicinity had been lured over by Kits. The swamp area had become a safe area, and there was no such good thing. Bai Xiaowen opened the silver treasure chests one by one. Except for a few empty treasure chests, the other treasure chests gave him an impure soul essence. Bai Xiaowen now had 23 impure soul essences in his possession. After a short rest, Bai Xiaowen continued to advance in the direction of Ill Wind Mound. Although he had used up a lot of his stamina, with the nourishment of the ale, he could still maintain his movements. Moreover, as long as there wasn't a large group of ghosts, Bai Xiaowen didn't need to use up too much stamina. He could just command the undead creatures in the Black Soul Stone to surround and attack. As for the undead creatures like Kits and the Skeletal Fiend Arcane Master, although they also consumed stamina and mental strength, they recovered very quickly. Especially the Skeletal Fiend Arcane Master. After breaking free from the restriction of mental strength, he was simply a cannon. The Lightning Strike Taoist technique had a demon-destroying effect on the majority of the monsters in the treasure space of the Dead Soul Lake. After killing a few drowned zombies, Bai Xiaowen collected some drowned bones and netherworld grass. He tried to fuse these two materials into the incomplete undead camouflage. In the end, he obtained a complete undead camouflage. The complete undead camouflage was still in the shape of a straw raincoat. However, it was different from before, with holes on the left and right. It could now completely cover the back of Bai Xiaowen's neck and back. The fog of the ghostly fog area drifted outside the raincoat. The bone-chilling feeling that seemed to be constantly absorbing heat finally dissipated. Bai Xiaowen gasped for air. He felt as if he had been removed from his shackles. This undead camouflage is only low? Then there should be intermediate, high, or even higher undead camouflage, right? I wonder what kind of effect it will have. Bai Xiaowen felt that the information provided by the school only covered some basic things, such as the creation of undead camouflage, the basic topography of the Dead Soul Lake, and so on. As for some of the more advanced and in-depth information, it was missing. For example, by and in the effects of undead camouflage above intermediate were all things that weren't mentioned in the information. After walking for a few kilometers, Bai Xiaowen finally arrived at the Netherworld Fissure. It had the most potential benefits, but also the most dangerous location, Ill Wind Mound. According to the information, Ill Wind Mound was actually a mass grave. Countless undead were buried there. Every once in a while, ghost soldiers would pass through Ill Wind Mound. All kinds of undead monsters would appear and patrol their territory. However, Ill Wind Mound had several specialties that were hard to give up, such as nether grass, ill wind flower, and so on. They were all advanced pharmaceutical materials. In addition, the undead ghost soldiers in Ill Wind Mound would also drop undead soul essences, which were also very popular in the market of Advanced Awakened. Undead soul essences could only be obtained by killing monsters, but nether grass and ill wind flower could be picked if one was lucky. Bai Xiaowen had just arrived at the Ill Wind Mound when he heard the sound of a fierce battle. He took a few quick steps and bypassed a pile of bones. Then, he saw several awakened ones fighting against more than a dozen ghost soldiers. Ghost soldiers were the general name of the undead monsters in Ill Wind Mound. There were drowned zombies, ghosts, water ghosts, and a creature that had never been seen before, zombie dog. The zombie dog was about the same size as other mutated dogs. However, its appearance was very horrifying. It looked like a dog that had been skinned alive. Its gums were all exposed and its body emitted a rancid smell. To be safe, Bai Xiaowen used insight on one of the zombie dogs. Zombie dog, level 5, race, undead/zombie shifter, attributes, strength 21, agility 18, Constitution 17, Spirit 5, Skill 1, Rotten Blood. The zombie dog's attack has a chance to cause bleeding and has a decaying toxin attached to it, causing continuous poison damage. Skill 2, Bite, omitted. The second skill, Bite, was similar to the Wrath Claw's Bite skill. Both skills would cause bleeding. This was an ordinary zombie dog. Both skills were offensive, so the threat level was relatively low. Bai Xiaowen then looked at another elite zombie dog. Apart from the overall increase in attributes, the bite skill had also become Savage Bite, which had an additional effect of crippling the target. The elite zombie dog's third skill was more interesting. It was called Swelling Self-Explosion. It would activate upon death and required 1.5 seconds of preparation time. Then, it would cause 150 points of magic damage to all targets, regardless of friend or foe, within a 10-meter radius. 150 points of magic damage did not seem high. However, for those fragile awakened ones whose constitution did not exceed 20, it was still very terrifying. One explosion would take away half of their HP, after factoring in the damage reduction. It must be noted that this was a chaotic battle. The attacks of other monsters would also reduce their HP. As for using the elite zombie dog to blow up other monsters, this method was undoubtedly beneficial in battle. However, the HP of the monsters blown up by the elite zombie dog would not be included in the awakened one's kill contribution. It would cause the loot to shrink. Experienced awakened ones were not willing to do this. A few of the awakened ones were clearly more experienced in dealing with the elite zombie dog. After the elite zombie dog's HP fell to critical levels, an agility-type awakened one lured the elite zombie dog away. The elite zombie dog's intelligence wasn't high, so it died far away from the crowd. The explosion did not cause any effect. It was equivalent to dodging a skill. Bai Xiaowen did not recognize these people. Besides, they were more than enough to deal with the monsters. He did not have any thoughts of making a move. Instead, he strolled around Chill Wind Mound and began to search for nether grass and chill wind flowers. Chapter 393. One of the hunters raised his hand and greeted Bai Xiaowen. "Hello, are you Bai Xiaowen from Jinghai University?" Bai Xiaowen nodded slightly. "Yes." The hunter who greeted him had dark skin and was a little thin, but he was carrying a shield. He was obviously the tank-type hunter who was charging at the front. After hearing Bai Xiaowen's confirmation, he said excitedly, "My name is Jiang Bo from Jiaodong University. Do you want to join our team and fight monsters together?" Before Bai Xiaowen could answer, another hunter next to him, the one who had just lured away the elite zombie dog and killed it, pulled Jiang Bo's clothes and said loudly, "I'm sorry, Bai Xiaowen. We have enough people on our side." Jiang Bo wanted to say something, but he was pulled back by the third hunter, so he could only shut up. Bai Xiaowen wanted to laugh, but since the other side had clearly expressed their refusal, he didn't need to go up and get a cold shoulder. He waved his hand and said, "Got it." While talking, Bai Xiaowen found a clump of nether grass. He quickly walked over and picked it. Seeing Bai Xiaowen walk away, the hunters who were fighting monsters heard a low argument. Jiang Bo said, "Why don't you let Bai Xiaowen join the team? He's so strong. With such a teammate, the pressure on us will be a lot less." The long-range, agile shooter who had just lured away the elite zombie dog was called Kuifei. He shot with a cold face and said lightly, "Yes, he's very strong. He's stronger than any of us. As long as he joins the team, he'll take most of the contribution points from this wave of monsters. What will we have left?" Another hunter named Teng Fan waved his two-handed sword and said in a muffled voice, "Kuifei is right. With the strength of the three of us, it's enough to deal with these monsters. There's no need to pull in another person to share the benefits." Jiang Bo finally understood what the two of them were thinking. However, he still shook his head. "You're wrong. If Bai Xiaowen joins us, our team's strength will increase by a lot. We can even try to kill the boss monster. Even if most of the contribution points are taken by Bai Xiaowen, we'll still earn more than killing elites and normal monsters here." Kuifei sneered, "If you want to curry favor with a master so much, then go ahead. No one is stopping you." Teng Fan, "That's right. Anyway, the two of us only met by chance. We just needed a tank at the last minute, so we teamed up with you. If you want to leave, then leave." Bai Xiaowen's current spirit was as high as 47 points. Even though he was some distance away, he could still hear their conversation clearly. He wanted to laugh. It turned out that the three of them were not from the same university. The boat of friendship capsized just like that. Bai Xiaowen's evaluation of Kuifei and Teng Fan's characters dropped a notch. Just now, there were many monsters. As the tank, Jiang Bo bore a lot of pressure. Now, including the elite zombie dog, half of the monsters were dead. The remaining few monsters with low HP could be dealt with by the strength-type warrior Teng Fan. Now that the two of them wanted to drive Jiang Bo away, it felt like getting rid of a donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. However, although Jiang Bo's expression was ugly, he did not leave on the spot. He said in a muffled voice, "I also contributed to this battle. If you want to drive me away now, I won't do as you wish. After we kill the monsters and divide the spirit points and treasure chests, I will naturally leave." This time, it was Teng Fan and Kuifei's turn to have ugly expressions. The battle continued. Suddenly, from another crack, a sturdy awakened with a shield on his back walked out. He glanced at the battle situation and suddenly said with a bit of surprise, "Teng Fan, Kuifei? What a coincidence." At this time, the battle was coming to an end. Kuifei had time to look back. Soon, he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression and said, "Brother Shanji." "Bullshit. My name is Ji Jingyuan. If you call me Shanji again, I'll get angry." The sturdy awakened with a shield on his back laughed, "What a coincidence. 3 people from our Luzhou University were assigned to the vicinity of the Netherworld crevice and met up in advance." Kuifei glanced sideways at Jiang Bo and deliberately said in a loud voice, "Brother, you came a bit late. If you came earlier, old Teng and I wouldn't have to team up with outsiders." Ji Jingyuan frowned, "Outsiders? Also an MT?" Kuifei said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help. You'll get a share of the kill contribution." "Okay." Ji Jingyuan dashed forward and deliberately blocked in front of Jiang Bo, blocking an attack from a drowned zombie. On the surface, it seemed that Ji Jingyuan was helping Jiang Bo take the damage. In fact, the number and strength of the monsters were not enough to kill any awakened. Ji Jingyuan did this to compete for the kill contribution. It must be known that the amount of damage a tank-type awakened had taken for his teammates and how long he had controlled the monsters would be converted into kill contribution according to the rules of the spirit realm. Jiang Bo changed directions left and right, wanting to fight the monsters. However, he was blocked by Ji Jingyuan's shield. "What are you doing?" Jiang Bo said angrily. "Helping my teammates absorb damage. Isn't this the job of an MT?" Ji Jingyuan grinned, "Fellow student, as a tank, your awareness is not good enough. Learn from me." Jiang Bo controlled his emotions and did not smash his hammer. If he took the initiative to PK 1 against 3, not only would he not be able to win, but he would also give his opponents a chance to defend themselves and counterattack. Anyone with a bit of intelligence would not do this. Jiang Bo simply stopped and stood to the side. In any case, he had participated in the battle for so long and had absorbed several kilograms of damage. His kill contribution could not be erased. When the time came, he would just take the treasure chest and leave. When the 3 Luzhou University awakened students saw Jiang Bo admit defeat, they all showed a proud smile. The 3 of them were not in a hurry to kill the boss. Instead, they slowed down their attacks and let Ji Jingyuan tank for a longer time. Obviously, the longer Ji Jingyuan tank, the greater his kill contribution would be. Correspondingly, Jiang Bo's kill contribution would be reduced. This Jiang Bo is an eyesore. Why don't we just kick him out? Ji Jingyuan whispered. Kuifei said, "I also want to do that. However, there is an outsider over there. He is a powerful fellow. Who knows if he will use this as an excuse to interfere and snatch our treasure chest." "He is." Ji Jingyuan followed Kuifei's finger and saw Bai Xiaowen digging up a stalk of wind flower. For a moment, he did not recognize him. He only felt that he looked familiar. Jinghai University's trump card, Bai Xiaowen. Hiss. Ji Jingyuan sucked in a breath of cold air. Forget it. Don't give him a chance to find fault. They had deliberately lowered their voices. They thought they were being careful. However, Bai Xiaowen heard most of their conversation. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and revealed a helpless smile. Bai Xiaowen found it hard to understand why these awakened ones would spend so much effort just to earn a little contribution from killing elite monsters. They were even willing to lower their own killing efficiency just to earn a little contribution. As for their discussion about whether or not Bai Xiaowen would find an excuse to interfere and snatch their spoils of war, Bai Xiaowen recalled the 70,000 plus points he had just gained and the 23 silver treasure chests he had just opened. I don't know what it feels like to be a rotten rat. My guesses have not stopped. Bai Xiaowen recalled a line from Li Shanyin's poem. It happened to fit his current state of mind. Of course, Bai Xiaowen was not a sentimental poet. He was also not an elegant man who ignored benefits. If he really encountered a tempting treasure, he would also snatch it. However, right now, competing with these useless awakened students for the spoils of war of a few common monsters and a few elite monsters was too little. It was not worth losing his reputation for this. Ji Jingyuan, Kuifei, and the others' guesses were like a homeless man who had won a 500 yuan lottery ticket. They looked at Jack Ma with vigilant eyes, worried that the other party would come and snatch the lottery ticket away. Actually, it's also good for these people from Luzhou University to clean up the monsters. I can collect the nether grass and evil wind flower with peace of mind. Unfortunately, I don't know where Fengwu is. Just as this thought flashed through Bai Xiaowen's mind, the ground of Evil Wind Mound suddenly rumbled. It can't be that effective, right? Bai Xiaowen was a little puzzled. His mouth had never been blessed. Kuifei and the others' faces changed. They shouted, "Hurry up and kill these monsters. More monsters are coming out." While they were talking, the ground of Evil Wind Mound cracked open. It was as if a pair of invisible hands were tearing the earth apart. Skinny arms stretched out from the cracks and slowly crawled out from the ground. They were thick skeletons. Their empty eye sockets were burning with blue phosphorescence. There were also zombies whose bodies were bloated and festering. Their movements were slightly slow. Their skin looked like it was soaked in water, showing a disgusting deathly white color. Black mist floated up along the cracks and turned into black shadows. Skeleton warriors, drowned zombies, specters. There are so many of them. Kuifei said in horror. Not only that, there is also the leader. The 2.5-meter-tall skeleton. It should be an elite individual, right? Ji Jingyuan's voice was slightly trembling. He could not believe his own words. The elite skeleton warriors are behind it. They are at least 2 heads shorter than it. Teng Fan shouted, "This is clearly the leader." Bai Xiaowen could see more clearly. There were hundreds of new undead monsters. Among them, there were more than a dozen elite monsters. And there was not only one leader, but a total of 3. Alexei, leader level 6, race, undead/bone race, profession, skeleton warrior commander, attributes, strength 52, agility 20, vitality 30, spirit 19, skill 1, white bone shield, passive effect, every time you receive physical damage, you will trigger a layer of white bone effect. This effect can be accumulated. When activated, you can release all the layers of white bone to form a shield that absorbs physical damage. Skill 2, Giant Swing, Alexei swings his greatsword and deals heavy physical damage to the target. There is also a knockback effect. Skill 3, Stun Heavy Blow, Alexei hits the target's head with a heavy punch, dealing heavy physical damage to the target. There's also a stun effect. Skill 4. On the side of the skeleton warrior commander Alexei, there was a banshee with a pale face and disheveled hair. She floated 1 foot in the air, her red eyes emitting a faint glow. Lady Civils, leader level 6, race, undead/soul race, profession, banshee commander, attributes, strength 29, agility 25, vitality 32, spirit 50, skill 1, body of nothingness, race passive ability, omitted. Skill 2, Soul Shriek, release a soul-stirring shriek, causing all nearby enemies to flee aimlessly. Lasts for 3 seconds and has an additional effect of lingering sound. The next Soul Shriek control duration is extended by 50%. Skill 3, Death Ripple, Lady Civils releases Death Ripple in a cone-shaped area in front of her, dealing heavy magic damage to all targets in the area. Skill 4. The Banshee Boss, Lady Civils, floated 1 foot above the ground. Her head was about the same height as the skeleton warrior commander Alexei. However, these two bosses were not the tallest. Beside them, among the drowned zombies, there was a huge, deformed monster that was 3 meters tall. Voodoo Giant Corpse, Leader Level 6, Race, Undead/Zombie Shifter, Profession, Drowned Zombie Commander, Attributes, Strength 48, Agility 13, Vitality 50, Spirit 15, Skill 1, Bloat, Passive, Voodoo Giant Corpse's health points are increased by 100%, armor and magic resistance are set to 0 by default. Skill 2, Poisonous Fog, Passive, Voodoo Giant Corpse automatically releases Poisonous Fog in battle, causing all enemies within melee range to suffer continuous poison damage. Skill 3, Ominous Aura, Passive, Voodoo Giant Corpse automatically releases Ominous Aura in battle, causing all enemies within melee range to be stacked with 15 stacks of Ominous Aura. Stacks of Ominous Aura will cause all of the target's attributes to decrease by 1 point. Skill 4, Crush, Passive, Voodoo Giant Corpse's attacks have an additional crushing effect, dealing additional crushing damage to targets smaller than itself. The smaller the target, the higher the crushing damage. The Voodoo Giant Corpse looked like a crooked tree with a blurry face. Its left arm was deformed and huge, while its right arm had mutated into an octopus tentacle. Its entire body emitted a rotten smell. The Voodoo Giant Corpse did not have any active attack skills. All of them were passive skills. However, it was undeniable that the combination of these 4 passive skills was very troublesome. Although the first skill had a negative effect, the positive effect was a little too explosive. It actually doubled the Voodoo Giant Corpse's health points. The Voodoo Giant Corpse's original 50 points of vitality gave it 500 points of health points. After doubling its health points were as high as 1,000 points. It was a little terrifying, having even more health points than a high-level boss. With such a high health points, it was very difficult to deal with it quickly. Moreover, the 2 shameless passive skills, Poisonous Fog and Ominous Aura, were definitely a melee killer. The last passive skill, Crush, happened to complement the Voodoo Giant Corpse's lethality. The strength of this giant corpse was imaginable. Chapter 394. The 3 bosses did not give the awakened ones any time to prepare. They led a group of undead creatures and rushed over. It was worth mentioning that Kuifei and the other 2 students from Luzhou University received special attention from the 3 bosses. Most of the elite monsters rushed towards the 3 of them. Some of them even rushed towards Jiangbo from Qingdao University. Bai Xiaowen was temporarily ignored by the monsters. It was not appropriate to say that he was completely ignored. Some of the monsters that were closer to Bai Xiaowen instinctively rushed over and attacked Bai Xiaowen. However, these monsters were just ordinary drowned zombies, specters, and skeletons. Bai Xiaowen dealt with them easily. Bai Xiaowen's thoughts turned slightly. He quickly thought of a possibility. The monsters of Ill Wind Mound were more vengeful. He did not attack the monsters of Ill Wind Mound. Therefore, the newly appeared group of undead creatures did not target him first. Their aggro value was relatively low. Jiangbo, who had just stopped fighting the monsters of Ill Wind Mound, had a higher aggro value. As for the Lujiang University trio, who had been slacking off and trying to earn more contribution points, they became the monster's primary target. The skeletal warrior commander charged forward and swung its greatsword at Ji Jingyuan. Ji Jingyuan didn't even dare to block the attack. He put away his shield and retreated. Although he was a level 5 elite profession awakened, he was facing a level 6 boss. When facing a boss of the same level or higher, only hero jobs had the ability to fight it. Moreover, it had to be a tyrannical hero job. Seeing the MT running away, Teng Fan and Kui Fei lost the courage to fight. They ran away one after another. They did not even have time to open the silver treasure chest of the elite monsters and the 2 ordinary monsters' treasure chests. As mentioned before, when an awakened one did not have time to open the treasure chest, they could choose to store the treasure chest in their storage space and wait until they had time to open it. However, there was a prerequisite. All the awakened ones with contribution points had to agree. Only then could one of them store the treasure chest in their storage space. If one of them did not agree, they could not do it. Just now, Kui Fei had tried to store the treasure chest. However, his face quickly turned black. Apparently, Jiang Bo had rejected his request to store the treasure chest, causing him to be unable to store the treasure chest and could only give up. Only a hero class can fight against a boss. Oh right, isn't there a hero class nearby? Ji Jingyuan thought of this and hurriedly shouted, "Student Bai Xiaowen. Why don't we work together and kill these leaders? Don't worry. In the end, we'll split the loot according to the contribution points. You'll get the biggest share." Ouch! Alexei chased after Ji Jingyuan, his greatsword slashing down. Although Ji Jingyuan raised his shield in time to block, he was still forced back. There was even a shallow dent on his shield, making Ji Jingyuan's heart ache. When Ji Jingyuan invited Bai Xiaowen, Teng Fan and Kui Fei's faces burned a little. They still remembered how they had rejected Jiang Bo's invitation to Bai Xiaowen to join the team. This slap in the face came too quickly, making the 2 awakened university students who had not stepped into society feel a little embarrassed. Bai Xiaowen smiled and shook his head. Seeing Bai Xiaowen refuse, Kui Fei became anxious. He rolled and crawled to dodge the attacks of 2 skeleton warriors and said loudly, "Captain Bai, we were wrong before. But the situation now is that the monsters are too strong. If we don't work together, we can only be defeated one by one. When we are driven out of the treasure space of the Dead Soul Lake, you won't be able to escape either." The vampire Kit stood in front of Bai Xiaowen, clawing and tearing an ordinary skeleton soldier in front of him into pieces. He laughed and said, "Wrong, wrong, wrong. You don't have the qualifications to work together. Follow the boss." After Kits came to Earth, he had been studying Chinese hard. He usually communicated with Bai Xiaowen not only through words, but also through telepathy. There were no obstacles, and he appeared to be very fluent. He also often went online to watch some jingles and jokes, and he could recite them quite well. However, Chinese grammar was different from English and Latin. So, when Kits spoke to people other than Bai Xiaowen, it was inevitable that his sentence structure would be a little strange. In the spiritual realm, Bai Xiaowen had killed high-level bosses. The 3 level 6 bosses in front of him did not have any key skills to increase HP or reduce crowd control. For him, it was not too difficult of a challenge. As for the combat power of Kui Fei and the others, it was just icing on the cake. There was not much of a need to work together. In fact, Bai Xiaowen himself did not reject the idea of working together. It would be easier for him to deal with the 3 bosses if Kui Fei and the others helped to hold off the elite monsters and minions. However, the characters of Kui Fei and the others were worrying. Bai Xiaowen did not want to work with such short-sighted awakened ones. Jiang Bo withstood the pressure of 2 elite monsters. He only defended and did not attack. He could still hold on for a while, and this was all thanks to his tank-type awakened one. The Lujiang University trio was miserable. Under the focus of the bosses, their space to escape was getting smaller and smaller. "You're called Jiang Bo, right? Come here and don't resist," Bai Xiaowen said. Jiang Bo heard Bai Xiaowen's voice and was a little excited. However, he was surrounded by the elite monsters and could not rush to Bai Xiaowen. He was wondering what Bai Xiaowen meant by "don't resist" when he suddenly heard a clattering sound. A fat stitched monster threw the chain in its hand and wrapped it around Jiang Bo's body a few times. A pulling force surged forth. Jiangbo woke up and quickly followed the pulling force. He gave up resisting. Suddenly, its body became light as it flew towards Bai Xiaowen like a cloud. The attacks of the two elite monsters behind it struck empty air. Okay, just rest next to me for a while. Don't move, Bai Xiaowen said. Jiangbo's undead camouflage was also an incomplete version. His stamina recovery speed was very slow. At this time, he was already panting. After taking 2 breaths, Jiangbo said, "Bye. Boss, do you think we should work together with them? Although these people are quite annoying, if we don't work together, we may be kicked out of this space in the end." The Banshee boss, Lady Civils, did not participate in the attack. However, a dozen or so specters had appeared at the entrances and exits of Ill Wind Mound. Clearly, they did not intend to give the 5 awakened players of Ill Wind Mound the chance to escape. They wanted to wipe them out in one fell swoop. Hence, there was no way to escape. Bai Xiaowen had a whole new level of respect for Jiangbo. In the face of difficulties, he was able to put aside the previous disagreements. From this point alone, Jiangbo was more mature than many university students. No need to work together. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and did not explain too much. He commanded the summoned creatures to focus on defense. The Lujiang University trio was forced into a corner. In the end, they had no choice but to give up the exploration opportunity and leave the Dead Soul Lake. Before they left, they looked at Bai Xiaowen with a complicated expression, but in the end, they did not dare to express their dissatisfaction. Chapter 395. As Jiangbo stared in shock, Bai Xiaowen took a step forward and raised his hand. A large group of undead summoned creatures appeared on the battlefield. Bai Xiaowen was now a level 5 hero, and his spirit attribute was as high as 47 points. With the addition of the Spirit Master profession in his spirit, the appearance of his summoned creatures had changed quite a bit compared to before they entered the Jiajing dimension. For skeletal swordsmen wielded shiny scimitars and thick iron shields. Their skeletons were covered with a layer of leather armor and laid with iron plates. The shadow assassin looked no different from a normal person. The important parts of its body were covered with leather armor, and the 2 short swords gleamed coldly. The Wrathclaw's body didn't grow bigger, but it had a rather perfect streamlined shape. Its 4 legs had obvious muscle contours, making it look thicker and more explosive. Suture Fatty's originally chubby body had also changed quite a bit. He also had muscle lines. Apart from his fat belly, he looked like a muscular man from the back. He looked quite similar to the butcher that Bai Xiaowen had seen in the game. The rust on his iron chains and kitchen knives had also disappeared. The vampire Keats' body had become even more muscular. He liked to unfold his double-breasted suit, revealing his firm chest muscles and coarse chest hair. That kind of pig-slaughtering aura was completely different from the aristocratic bearing of a normal vampire. The necromancer had mutated in the Jiajing plane. His appearance hadn't changed much. He was still covered in a black robe, making him look quite mysterious. The only difference was that his black robes were much neater than before. It was no longer as tattered as before, as if he was begging for food. Even though Jiangbo had been mentally prepared for the number of summoned creatures Bai Xiaowen had summoned, he was still shocked by the spectacular military formation. However, after the initial shock, Jiangbo quickly recalled the number of enemies. "Boss Bai Xiaowen, although you have a lot of people on your side, the enemy has even more. If we compete in numbers, we won't be able to win." There were indeed a lot of monsters on Ill Wind Mound. There were close to 100 of them. Among them were a dozen or so elite monsters of different races, as well as 3 leader-level bosses. Bai Xiaowen smiled slightly and didn't explain further. In terms of numbers, his side was at an absolute disadvantage. The ratio was 10 to 1. However, the battle between hunters was never a simple competition of numbers. Most of the monsters in front of him were close combat creatures. They were not a well-organized army with a combination of close-range and long-range combat. Although there were many of them, there were at most 10 to 20 of them fighting Bai Xiaowen at the same time. the other monsters were separated by their own people and could not squeeze in. In addition, Bai Xiaowen could also see that the actions of these leader monsters were somewhat sluggish. They did not seem to have any battle intelligence, especially the voodoo giant corpse, which was basically confirmed to have zero intelligence. Only the Banshee commander, Madame Civils, was able to control her specter to block the way out of Chilly Wind Mound, showing a certain degree of intelligence. As long as Bai Xiaowen found the right opportunity to kill the enemy's leader, the remaining elite and normal monsters would just be moving mana points and treasure chests in his eyes. After Bai Xiaowen summoned all his creatures, he chose to retreat and stick to the stone wall of Ill Wind Mound. The skeleton sword shield warrior, Fatty, and other meat shield creatures blocked the front, while the Wrath Claw, Kits, and other creatures attacked from behind. A wave of undead monsters quickly rushed over. However, it was like a wave crashing into a reef. The skeleton sword shield warrior and Fatty did not move at all. Under Bai Xiaowen's command, Kits transformed into a bat and shuttled through the crowd of monsters, quickly attracting a large number of monsters. He flew wildly to the side. Even the skeleton warrior commander Alexei and the voodoo giant corpse were alerted by him. With heavy footsteps, the two bosses chased after Kits. Thanks to Kits attracting monsters, a large gap appeared in the crowd of monsters in front of them. With a gust of wind, the Wrath Claw rushed out with its 4 claws, completely ignoring the other monsters. It ran straight for the Banshee commander, Madame Civils, in the distance. The Wrath Claw's dexterity was now as high as 34 points. When it sprinted at full speed, it was as fast as a gust of wind. The slightly slower undead monsters could not even touch a hair on its head. Only the Spiritas monsters, ghosts, were slightly faster and could deal a certain amount of damage to the Wrath Claw when it sprinted. However, the Wrath Claw and Bai Xiaowen had established a life-sharing connection. The amount of HP it lost was completely within the range of what it could bear. These monsters did not have a unified command. After the Wrath Claw sprinted out, another group of monsters followed. Bai Xiaowen glanced at Jiangbo, seeing that he was still in a daze. He shook his head slightly and activated the +4 sprint effect of the sharkskin boots. His speed increased explosively, and he followed behind the Wrath Claw and the group of monsters, also charging towards Madame Civils. When he was about 10 meters away from Madame Civils, Bai Xiaowen's legs flashed. White Eagle's Assault, active skill, glide, activated. Jumping ability increased by 3 times. Bai Xiaowen was like an eagle as he leaped high into the air among the group of monsters. He leaped over a dozen meters into the air. Using the inertia of charging forward, Bai Xiaowen's figure drew a long parabola in the air. He rushed in front of Madame Civils and kicked out. When Bai Xiaowen jumped over, Madame Civils quickly reacted. She suddenly opened her mouth and let out a soul-stirring roar. However, just as she opened her mouth, a bolt of lightning struck down from afar. Whoosh! Madame Civils cried out in pain, but there was no sound. Electric arcs swam on the surface of her body. Not only did she fall into a temporary zombie state, but she also had to endure the additional evil breaker damage of the lightning spell. Moreover, she had the passive racial ability of Body of Nothingness, which made her vulnerable to magic. This bolt of lightning, including the evil breaker damage, caused a total of 64 magic damage. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes slightly. He quickly calculated that Madame Civils' magic resistance should be quite high. Otherwise, the additional 50% damage from the lightning bolt and the evil breaker effect would not be less than 100 points of damage. However, by interrupting Madame Civils' mind shriek, which was an important crowd control skill, Bai Xiaowen had achieved his goal. He used the momentum of charging forward to kick Madame Civils' chest, making her body float. Then, he twisted his waist in the air and kicked Madame Civils into the air with a second kick. The glide skill's effect of doubling the damage of kicks was very powerful. The theoretical damage of these 2 kicks was close to 100 points. Of course, Madame Civils benefited from the racial passive of Body of Nothingness, which reduced the physical damage she received by 50%. In the end, she only received 46 points of physical damage. She had a racial passive against physical damage, and she had high magic resistance against magic damage. This was the powerful defense of the Banshee leader, Madame Civils. The two skills, which had a theoretical damage of more than 250 points, only dealt 110 points of damage. But don't forget that Madame Civils's constitution was 32, and her HP was only 320 points. The first wave of attacks from Bai Xiaowen and the Undead Arcane Master had taken away a third of her HP. Junior and intermediate Banshee leaders had several hundred HP less than advanced Banshee leaders with the same constitution. This made the assassination plan feasible. While Madame Civils was in the air, Bai Xiaowen landed lightly on the ground. Then, he punched out with a flaming fist, accurately hitting Madame Civils's abdomen. This punch did little physical damage, but the flames it carried completely enveloped Madame Civils, causing her to become stiff again. Then, Bai Xiaowen raised and lowered his elbow, using the simple 3 strikes of the ancient martial arts of the Grassland sect, heavily knocking Madame Civils to the ground. Flames rose, and she lost another 100 points of HP, first one. Bai Xiaowen thought. At this time, Madame Civils's HP was less than 100 points, and she still had to deal with the Wrath Claw's suppressive skills. But something unexpected happened. Madame Civils had just caught her breath when her figure flashed and disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already 7 or 8 meters away. Her red eyes were filled with hatred. She screamed and pushed her hands in Bai Xiaowen's direction. Banshee leader Madame Civils's skill, Flicker activated. Banshee leader Madame Civils's skill, Death Ripple activated. The 2 notifications came one after another. Bai Xiaowen took a deep breath, but his expression didn't change. On his neck, a necklace flashed with holy light, turning into a shield of light that completely enveloped him. Arbiter's Resolve, an additional protection skill, can form a shield that absorbs damage equal to Constitution multiplied by 3. Bai Xiaowen's Constitution was as high as 27 points, so the shield he formed could absorb as much as 81 points of damage. The reason Bai Xiaowen used this precious life-saving skill that he didn't use often was mainly because he and the Wrath Claw were both in the attack range of the Death Ripple, and they were connected to each other through life-sharing. The Wrath Claw's HP had already fallen to around 80% in the process of luring the monsters. In order to avoid losing too much HP in the upcoming battle, the Death Ripple activated. Bai Xiaowen and the Wrath Claw were dealt 105 and 144 points of damage respectively. The reason why the damage they received was different was because Bai Xiaowen's magic resistance was higher than the Wrath Claw's. After the shield absorbed the damage, the remaining 168 points of damage were split between the Wrath Claw and Bai Xiaowen according to the ratio of their HP. Bai Xiaowen and the Wrath Claw's HP had been reduced by 30%, leaving them with only half of their HP left. It could be seen that as a level 6 boss, Lady Civilize was still very scary. If she controlled him and used 2 or more damaging skills, even Bai Xiaowen wouldn't be able to take it. But now, Lady Civilize no longer had any ability to resist. She could only let out a shrill scream, ordering the 2 ghosts nearby to block her. A bloody glow appeared on the Wrath Claw's body, and it roared angrily as it charged forward, sending the 2 ghosts flying backward. At this time, the Wrath Claw had an additional 50% critical strike rate. Including the high critical strike rate brought about by its high agility, the critical strike rate was simply terrifying. It waved its claws continuously, and a bloody glow appeared on Lady Civilize's body as critical strike numbers popped up one after another. The Skeletal Warrior Commander and the Voodoo Giant Corpse were attracted by the Banshee Commander's shrill scream. They abandoned kits and strode over. Bai Xiaowen quickly activated the deterrence skill, freezing the group of monsters in place. Most undead creatures' intelligence didn't exceed the threshold of 14 points. The deterrence skill no longer brought fear, but the more frightening stun effect. Although Lady Civilize wasn't controlled, she didn't need it anymore. In the distance, the Skeletal Warrior's second lightning strike spell fell, directly taking away what little HP she had left. With a mournful cry, Lady Civilize's body dissipated into light, leaving behind only a golden chest. As expected, a level 6 boss and a level 7 boss are much easier to kill, even though there's only a difference of 1 level. This thought flashed through Bai Xiaowen's mind, and he put away Lady Civilize's golden chest. Without the Banshee Commander's large area of effect crowd control, Bai Xiaowen had a much easier time fighting. Kits charged over and madly scratched the voodoo giant corpse's body twice, then fled. He successfully attracted the voodoo giant corpse's attention and led it to the edge of the battlefield. Because the voodoo giant corpse had 1000 HP and 2 skills that countered melee attacks, Bai Xiaowen planned to deal with it last. He would have to trouble Kits first, and let him walk the dog, enduring the voodoo giant corpse's 2 great passive skills, Poisonous Cloud, and Ominous Aura. Kit's agility was high enough, and his attacks had a lifesteal effect, so he was the most suitable for this job. Of course, this method of luring monsters was only effective against monsters with low intelligence. If it was an intelligent boss from the spirit world, it definitely wouldn't be so easily lured by Kits and obediently follow him. Bai Xiaowen faced the skeletal warrior commander, Alexei. He raised his left hand, and a magic book with a funny face on the cover appeared in his palm. The pages of the book rattled as it flipped. Activating the demonic book of Ravings skill, Ravings. Beginning dice roll. 3 illusory dice rolled onto the ground, 5, 2, 3. The result of the dice roll is 10. You will draw a 2-star spell. Draw successful. The spell drawn is Flame Impact. Flame Impact, release flames to attack the target, causing moderate fire damage. There's also a chance of knocking the target back. A ball of flame appeared in Bai Xiaowen's palm, and like an invisible hand of fire, it slammed into the skeletal warrior commander, Alexei's chest, knocking him back 2 steps. Bai Xiaowen's mental strength also decreased by 4 points. Not bad, just that the spell's star level is a bit low. Bai Xiaowen was quite satisfied. He didn't lose out by drawing an offensive spell and a bone-cutting spell. According to experience, even if he drew a holy healing spell, it wouldn't restore the HP of the undead creature in front of him. Instead, it would cause damage. Unless his luck was so bad that he drew a darkness-type healing spell like Shadow Healing, it would restore the creature's HP. However, Alexei was currently at full HP, so even if he was healed, it wouldn't affect him. Bai Xiaowen would only lose some mental strength. Of course, the worst luck would be drawing a shield-type spell. Compared to the huge number of spells in the entire spell library, this probability wasn't high. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.